Let me introduce to you our speaker today. Some of you probably recognize her from Facebook. Pixie Cigar is the founder of the Community Builder Union. She is a community builder who is passionate about developing people and their ideas. To those who don't know, a community builder is they create engagement amongst people and building communities to foster theirs and the ecosystem's growth that will enable collaborative learning. Besides her corporate job, she also co-leads a few nonprofit communities in youth and legal tech. Today, as you can see in the video, she speaks 5 languages, Mandarin, Malay, Japanese, Cantonese, and English. One of the similarities that me and Miss Pixie shared is that we both study in China. She actually studied in China her whole life, and she graduated from Guangdong 工业大学, which is Guangdong Industry University. So today she's going to share with us her own personal journey to achieve what she does today. So let's invite Miss Pixie to the stage.
Can I have the mic to move around? Hello? Can you guys hear me? Yes. Cool. So you guys just saw the video, right? Unfortunately, I actually really hated that video. It got me so annoyed because I felt like they don't know me. I felt, because the languages I spoke, the way how even I smiled at the end of the video, the countries I went to, it had nothing to do with who I was as an individual. I was just dragged around by my parents. I didn't really get a say at like, okay, I'm moving to America. No, you don't get that when you're a kid. And today I kind of want to share about who Pixie is. But before we go into Pixie, I want to share about how I got here. So as mentioned in the video and by our introducer here today, I work as a community builder. But it was not always like that. I had no clue. A lot of times, parents give me a lot of, not say freedom in a sense, grown-ups always expect you to know exactly what you want to do with your life. Whether they asking you at 7 years old, okay, Pixie, what are you going to be when you grow up? Or what university are you going to go to? What kind of job are you going to have? People are always expecting that you know. But in reality is that you have no freaking clue. You don't know what is going to happen next, how you're going to get there, how you're going to achieve that. You have no clue. I don't know about you guys, but for me. Raise your hands if you think that you feel that you know what you want to do with your life. Oh my God, one person only? Guys, this is quite sad. How many of you think you're halfway there? Okay. You know, for YK scholars, you guys still quite lost, Come on now. All right. I want you guys to share with the person next to you. What was your childhood dream? And what are you doing now? What's your goal right now? You have 1 minute, share to the person next to you. Okay guys, time's up. Clap your hands once if you heard me. Clap your hands twice if you heard me. Okay, we all done? Who can share what your friend has just told you, their childhood dream, and what they're doing right now. Can I get a volunteer? It's about you guys today. I'm just talking, but today it's about you guys, YK scholars. Let's hear what you have over here. But share what the other person said. Okay? Can we have a mic passed over there to table 21, I think? I'm very blind, sorry guys. Okay. Where's the person? Okay. So state your name, where you're studying, anything interesting about you, but mostly what did that person next to you share? What's their childhood dream and what they're doing right now? What's their goal?
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Sha'an and I'm currently... Oh, okay. Oops, sorry. Okay.
Let us see you, okay?
Okay, I don't want to be seen, but it's okay. 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 Hi, my name is Sha'an. I'm currently studying in Uni 10, University Tenaga Nasional. Yeah, and I don't think there's anything interesting about me, but he has something interesting. So it's about him. Okay, so his name is Juan, and as a child, he wanted to be an engineer. But now he's on his way to become a pilot. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he's a Malaysia Airlines Berhad scholar. Yeah, and his goal is basically to become a pilot that could actually serve the people in a way or another. Yeah.
Okay. Let's put our hands together. Good luck. Hopefully you do become the pilot. Let me get you on my... Okay, one more person. Let's on this side of the room. Okay, I think there's two. Okay, first you over here, the girl in front. Can we have a mic passed over to her, please?
Sorry.
And do say something interesting about you. All of you guys, there must be something interesting, okay? Even having a hobby as crocheting, that's something really interesting. I would not have seen that happening. So please, do share your name, what you're currently studying, what's something interesting about you, and share about that person you just spoke to.
Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. My name is Bashira. I'm from University Malaya, currently the first year student in chemical engineering degree. So my childhood dream was to become a dentist, but then as I grow older, I'm currently doing chemical engineering. It just changed. Yeah, that's what life is. So I asked the next person, which is Fatin, and she told me that when she was a kid, just like any other kids, with some exposure from the parents, so she wanted to become a doctor. So as she grew older, now she's doing law. A completely two different thing. But it's okay. And then next, I even asked Haikal. Haikal, he had a dream. He wanted to become an astronaut. Ooh.
How many of you wanted to be an astronaut when you were kids?
Oh, that's a lot. So, but now Haikal is doing mechanical engineering. It doesn't really run much. Lebih kurang je. So, yeah. And also, I asked Shamim. Yeah, Shamim. And Shamim, well, when he was a kid, he was not sure of what he wanted to be. But as he grew older, he knew that he wanted to be an academician. So that's what he's doing now. So, yeah, thank you.
Can I have Shamin share about how did you finally decide to go into mechanical engineering? I couldn't hear it.
Who, me?
Him, yeah.
Oh, at first he didn't know what to do, but then now he's trying to be, he's becoming an academician.
Okay. What made you finally decide on that?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Actually, I found it throughout my exposure because in my university days, I used to be a teaching assistant. So throughout my undergrad and postgrad time, I used to be teaching assistant. So at that time, I got the idea about the life of an academician. Plus, some of my family members are also academicians, so I saw what they do and the way they work. So from them, and I also, from my teaching assistant experience, I used to like grow liking for this job. So then I switched my or set my goal to be an academician.
Thank you very much for sharing. Put the hands together, please. Okay, we had one more person. We'll take the one last one at table 7. It's okay.
Hi everyone, I'm Nabila. I'm a third year medical student in International Medical University. One thing interesting about me is that I really like the cartoon We Bear Bears. Yeah, cartoon We Bear Bears, yeah. But one thing I would like to share with you guys is my friend's interest. Mood's childhood dream was to own a hotel. And now he's doing his final year in law. So life happens.
How did that come about? Can you please explain that? From owning a hotel to law. Yes, please. Please explain yourself right now.
I really do not know why I wanted to own a hotel. In all honesty, all I knew was hotels were cool, and I wanted to have one. But then as I grew up, and I guess I sold my soul to the devil, and I'm doing law.
Hey, you sold your soul to justice. Think about that, to justice. Okay, thank you guys so much for sharing. Now it's my turn. Now I have the stage. I'm going to share what I started out with during my childhood, if I have any still left, and to how I brought me here till today. So, for one disclaimer, I'm not teaching you how to live your life. I'm not going to tell you that this is the way how to do it. Some people may think that it was crazy, the amount of random things I did, but for me that was important. And today I'm just sharing my story. Take it or leave it, whatever you think is valuable to you, but do let me know your feedback afterwards. So my life, ups and downs, mostly sometimes downs. Okay, this is long, it was mainly for me to remember. So, started out 5 years old, I went to boarding school. How many of you went to boarding school before? Okay, a lot of you guys. All right, so 5 years old, I was shipped off to this random province in China to study martial arts. My parents suddenly thought that, hey, she likes kung fu movies. She should study martial arts. So it was goodbye, mama, I left. Around 7, 8 years old, I started thinking, hey, dancing. I want to be a ballerina. My mother was a professional dancer. Until the very tomboy Pixie went into the classroom and realized everyone wore dresses. And I'm like, nope. After a month, I gave up on that one. Following that, I went back to martial arts school. It was actually an Olympic athlete school, so professional athlete that had military management. I absolutely loved it. It was one of my best times in my life because I loved the structure when you're in boarding school, especially military school. And anything you do, just make sure you're the best at it. It sounds easy, but then you can live however you want. And for me, that was something, it was really, really important to me. There are many things that I did that it was on and off, I didn't continue, but I tried to learn something every single time. So I was in athlete school about 2 years studying martial arts because I'm like, I want to be an actress. Because I love this movie called 还珠格格. It's this Chinese show. And I wanted to be a martial art actress. I had goals. I knew what I wanted in life. And in my family, when you say you want to do something, they pack you up and you go to a professional school and you don't come home until you know it all. Yes, that's where my family is like. So it's very, very stressful when you are the eldest kid in the family, a relatively smart, fast learner, and when you don't know what to do. It's not so acceptable, at least where I come from. So when everyone knows their things, I'm there like, okay, I'll try something else. Next up, I moved to a big city. First time I moved to Guangzhou. Previously, I moved in a lot of countries. I was born in the States. I moved around. But in China, when I was 12 years old, I moved to Guangzhou. To me, I took the train, the metro. I thought I went into a sci-fi movie. I'm there like, wow, you take this chip, you click this, and it opens the door automatically. That is so high tech. So of course, very kampong of me going into Guangzhou and being extremely overwhelmed with how this big city was. And unfortunately, when it came to schools, there was no athlete school, state-owned athlete school in Guangdong province. Well, Cantonese are generally quite short and puny, so I wasn't so surprised. So I went to a theater school because the idea of an actress was still in my head. Growing up, I had about 3 goals in life. One was to graduate with a class, because I moved around about 20 times before I was 18, so I never ever stayed with the same class. 2 was to go to the Beijing Theater University. It's one of the top theater schools in entire China. But every single time it was for a different goal. And the last goal was to be taller than my father. I'm still not taller than him. I'm waiting for him to shrink. So ideally, I am 1 centimeter shorter than him. It is very, very stressful. But moving forward, I went to theater school. I got bored. The problem is whenever I started learning something, I got relatively good at it. I'm like, okay, yes. And then what? I felt no drive. And this happened so many times in my life that every time I feel that, okay, there's something that I'm working towards, but whenever I get bored. I became kind of a jack of all trades because I started learning things and exploring stuff, but I never continued on. And that got me even more, in a way, depressed, if you must use that word, because I felt like I did not have goals and I wasn't contributing to society. So at 13 years old, my father, it was Christmas, I went home. My father told me, "You are bored in school, don't go back." I just cried. It was a very, very sad moment for me. Told me not to go back to school. But it's not for general reasons why we're thinking, oh, girls don't study. It's because he saw that I was just extremely bored. I kept up my grades because I could. I spent most of my time in the library or the computer room reading. I didn't want to communicate with people. I wasn't trying to improve my surrounding. And my father saw that and like, if you're going to be like this, then it's not worth it. You have to start taking life seriously. So at 13 years old, nearly 14, on that Christmas was the last time I was in secondary school. I left and I started taking distant learning because my father's Canadian. For Canadians and Americans, when you study overseas, you take distant learning. It's very common. So you get your secondary education in America or Canada. So while I was taking my distant learning, I started working in my father's company. I was packaging boxes, doing quality control. I was putting together motorcycle parts. Some people often can't tell, but I know how to put a motorcycle together. I learned that when I was working for my father, even doing Photoshop. And at first I was thinking, hey, this is interesting. Maybe I can take over the family business that is expected from me. But I felt that, okay, this is somewhere I can head towards. But then I got bored again. Until my father, I was around 14 and a half, almost 15 years old. He came to me one day, passed me a piece of paper with our company's logo on it and told me, Pixie, in 5 hours, there's going to be a client flying in from, I think it was Zambia. She's going to be having a 1-week business trip in China. You're going to manage her entire business trip, translate everything, and just manage everything here. Remember to ask 200 RMB as your interpreting fee and 10% commission from the shops. That was the advice he gave, and off I figured out my way to go to the airport and pick up the client. I was so scared. I had no freaking clue how I was going to do this. I didn't know anything. I had a phone, and I had my computer, and I was just researching things on Baidu, which is the China version of Google, and figuring out where do you find suppliers for this? Going on Alibaba and trying to find things for the client. And when it came to asking for commission, I was petrified. I was so scared the shop owners were going to smack me. I was positive the moment I asked for commission, I'm going to be yelled at. And that moment, when after a whole day, I kept trying to ask. After many, many failed attempts, I finally said those magical words, add 10 points, boss. And for me, that was a breaking point in my life. That is the moment when I kicked through. I was like, no matter what, I need to get this commission because I can't go home and tell my dad that I failed, that I was too scared, I chickened out and wasn't be able to do that. Mind you, this commission thing is a very, very common thing. In interpreters, that's the business model, that's how it works. And the shop owner just looked at me, looked down, went on her calculator, and gave me a new price to interpret for my client. I was so happy. Till this day, I still remember that moment. It was just about 65 RMB, which is like 30 ringgit. But for me, that 30 ringgit changed how I decided to, not to work in my life, but how I decided to take things. Because I realized that whenever I put myself in very, very difficult situations, I always manage to push through because I get myself so scared that if I don't do it, I die. It's the mindset that I've embedded in myself. Not the most healthiest, but it worked for me. After that, I'm still working, interpreting, and then again I'm feeling, I'm just working all day. Am I contributing to the society? Something is missing. I started volunteering. I saw my friend share on his social media page about this community center. And this community center, they focus on bridging the gap between minority groups. So okay, I went over, knocked on their door and said, hey, I'm Pixie, how can I help you? How can I volunteer or support anything that you guys are doing? So that started the journey since about 2010-ish to volunteer. I did everything from cleaning up the streets, bringing people into mosques to educate them about what is Islam, because you had people who lived 50 years around the mosque and has never ever been inside. For them, it was like a forbidden city that you could not enter. That mindset was crazy, and what we were tasked to do was to see how, never mind about accepting, but let's first understand each other. In that area, there are many, many minority groups, so I worked with crowds like that. I went over to old folks' home to help them clean up. I went around with a flyer telling people to clean up after their dog's poop. It was kind of awkward, especially because I'm very, very scared of dogs. And I had to go over to the houses, knock on doors, and give out flyers saying, guys, actually, it's good like this because of health reasons. So it was crazy. It was very random. I was always very, very awkward. Generally, I didn't know anybody around there, but I felt that it was important for me to experience different things. But again, I got bored. So you can't keep hearing this, again I got bored, again I get bored. And then I felt, you know what? Maybe I should go back to school because I didn't see anything from my working life anymore. So by that time I finished distance studies, I went back to school and I went to university. But unfortunately, only 7 people are cool enough. My major in film production, because I still had that, not actress, but the filming dream. Mainly because I saw on TV and I looked at it and thought, how do you create that? So I decided to go study film production. But that year, a week before course, I found out only 7 people signed up that year. So they canceled my major. Yeah, I was very shocked. I'm going there collecting my books like, this ain't my books. It's not. They said, oh, only 7 people joined the major. And mind you, it's a good major in that school. But for some reason, only 7 people wanted to study film production. So I chose the next, what I thought was the most similar thing, animation. Turns out it's not. Turns out you need a lot of skill sets that I had no clue about. For example, drawing. I could not draw for my life. I looked like doing little scribbles. but I didn't like not knowing. When I went into school, I noticed that, gosh, I kind of bottomed the class. Mainly it was I had no choice because I never learned any of these things. And I just said, fuck it, I'm gonna figure out. I took every single break I can and made sure that I learned how to draw, learned how to use all these tech softwares just to figure it out because I really didn't like not knowing. And it made me feel very, very uncomfortable. And thankfully, I'm a fast learner. By the end of year 1, beginning of year 2, I was top of class. And that was quite crazy. But the problem was, the moment I calculated my grades and saw that I was top of my class, I lost all interest. I got bored again. I'm like, all right, now what? What's there for me to move on? There's no goal for me to head towards. I am already top of the class. What can I do? And I still remember that heart-dropping moment on my Excel sheet looking at the numbers. I knew that I'm bored again. There's nothing. So I still went to class. I still made sure that I got my grades up. I did skip a lot of class, unfortunately, but I'm very smart. So I got away with all of that. My teachers were fine with it. Due to my major, it allowed me. I picked up photography because I wanted to explore the city and look at the world in a different way. I felt photography was the way. Then my mom, she went to Malaysia. She went to Malaysia and then she just left. So I'm like, okay guys, bye-bye. I left to Malaysia as well. I didn't even join the graduation ceremony. I just finished my exams and left because I felt there was nothing in China anymore. I am bored. And when I'm bored, I have no goals. And when I have no goals, I feel that I am useless. So, when I was in Malaysia, I started working again. I was working for my father's company. Being the firstborn, you are expected to do so, apparently. But then, I keep thinking, what am I doing with my life? I get into this panic mode and not knowing what's next. What is there to live for anymore? And the problem was that I always felt that I had to have a goal. And I would look at it and say, hey, this is cool, let me do this. And yay, I managed to achieve this, but then I'm bored again. What's next? The problem is, my problem is that I kept thinking that a goal was necessary to move on. I spent so much time thinking about that I needed a goal, I wasn't doing anything. I didn't feel like I was useful to society. Then I realized, I can't even remember what was the incident, but one day I'm like, heck it. You know what? If I'm gonna sit around all day expecting a goal to come, it's not gonna happen. I need to go out and proactively do something. And I accepted the fact that I will never necessarily know what's gonna happen in life. So I just started, Pixie, keep calm. Just do it. I got my Malaysian driver license. I went out to every single event you can think of. I went to the most random things, business stuff, volunteering. I even ended up at an MLM event once. It took me like 20 minutes to realize it. I'm like, when are we talking about marketing, huh? Why are they showing me this product? It was very, very dodgy. Have anyone been to Swiss Gardens? It's a very, very dodgy place. A lot of MLM events. Pro tip. But in Malaysia, I knew no one here. This is my, I was here for 1 year, but I was busy with my father's company and starting going to events. And back then, like about 4 years ago, events are not like today, so accessible. You couldn't just find events. You had to go through so many channels to figure it out. I just started taking, not only going to events, but volunteering in any possible way I could. I would see interesting projects and be like, how can I help you? What can I do? I'll do anything. Because I wanted to make sure that I was exposed to different stuff. Because I knew that if I did not keep going out and doing things, I'll never find that one thing that just makes me fall in love. So I started with startups, NGO work, public speaking, for example. Fun fact, I passed out on stage before for public speaking. I am petrified of going up on stage that I literally blacked out. That was in theater school. And I avoided stages for most of my life until I started doing my own events and I couldn't afford an MC. So then I'm like, okay guys, let's welcome speaker A, speaker B, and move on. I kept putting myself in very difficult situations. So it was earlier this year, I took my first proper MCing gig. I was so scared. It was around April. I only accepted it because they thought I can do it. I'm like, I can't tell them I can't. But if I don't do it, I'll never ever be able to figure out this and get through this fright that I had. I was running to the toilet a lot. I was so scared. I got on stage. I looked at the 350 people. They were, you know when the stage goes up like that? And it was all bright and they were looking at me. I'm like, oh my God. I had 15 seconds that I was just blacked out. And then I'm like, okay, they paid me. I have to push through this. So I pushed through. And I'm so grateful for every single person who gave me opportunities, who believed in me and be like, Pixie, no, you can do this. Whether you believe it or not, it's there. Take the opportunity or leave it. And I decided to take it, even when I felt extremely, extremely uncomfortable. And thankfully, due to many other opportunities, today I can stand here without blacking out. So it ended up good. Then I went to community building. And I fell in love. Community building, bringing people together, connecting them, creating environments for them to feel passionate. And that is something that just drove me crazy. I can't, even when I create a post of seeing how people interact, I literally geek off over that. To me, that's my favorite thing ever. So right now, the community building, NGO work, and legal technology, because I believe that is important for our society. In a way, I probably wish that I knew this earlier on, but I knew that if I did not do all of these random things, I would not have the possible ability to do what I do today, whether it be studying animation, dancing, theater school, all of these things contributed to what you see today, the Pixie today. So, my advice to you, because we're running out of time. Always take an opportunity. Yes, it is fucking scary when you don't know what you're gonna do with your life. And most of us, you guys are the ones telling me you don't know. I don't see a lot of people putting up your hands just now. But it's really important to just take every single opportunity that you have. But focus on creating value. Because if I just went out and done a bunch of very empty and shallow things, everyone has their own definition. But if you feel that, okay, I did something, I'm creating value, then just keep trying different things. Get out of your comfort zone. If I didn't accept that MCing gig, I couldn't stand here with a conscious mind right now. If I didn't ask for that 10% commission, I probably would have a fear of any sales or business development work for my entire life. I wouldn't be able to go home and say, no, I did it. And it really wasn't for the money. It wasn't much money back then. I think I spent it on my nails because I wanted to treat myself, Pixie, you did a good job. But if I didn't, every single time I just keep trying, how can I make myself very, very uncomfortable? So again, not necessarily the best advice to everyone because it's very nerve-wracking, but after every Sunday, when I finish all of my things on the week, I tell myself, Pixie, you survived this. You did not die. So what's the worst thing that can happen? Be okay with not knowing. Just go with the flow. Honestly, I spent so much time trying to figure out what to do with my life and getting it perfect that I was just wasting my years around. And we don't have time to wait around. It can be terrifying. It really is. Even till today, I get really scared at times. I'm like, oh my God, is this actually going to work out? But I know that if I don't figure it out, if I don't just do it, I will never, ever, ever know. And I will regret it one day. Even the stupid things I've done, I'm grateful for all of those things that happened because I did it. I didn't tell myself, you know what, next time. Every time you tell yourself next time, it's going to be, I wish I did it last time. Stay positive. It's the most important thing. If you don't stay positive, all of these things it can drive you crazy. And it's not going to always work out. Honestly, it won't. But when it does, just stay positive. And when you feel that things are really, really down, remember you didn't die. Honestly, you did not die. It could be worse than that. Like, you survived this. So I really hope for you guys who are studying, and the reason why I'm talking about this today instead of specifically looking into leadership, because as leaders ourselves, if you don't figure out yourself, how are you going to figure out the path for other people? Understanding how to live your life in this way, creating value, going out and doing it, and not limiting yourself in certain ways, is the way how you can guide whoever's under your leadership. Because that's important. You have to be able to look at things and like, okay, you know what, let's just try it. It's not the end of the world even if you fail. You did not die. Once again, you did not die. And hopefully, during this journey, I don't get bored again. But even if I do get bored, thankfully with all of these things that I have done, it made me very, very positive. So even if I get bored, hey, there's one next other really, really cool thing out there. It may become the love of my life. I may focus 20, 30 years on it. Or I may just do it for a month and get bored. But what's so bad about that? So again, keep calm. Just do it. And if you guys are wondering, yes, Pixie Cigar is my real name. Honestly, it is. And I build communities. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much. I feel that all of us can relate to Miss Pixie Cigar in a way that there's a lot of people expect from us, our parents, YK, in YK interviews, we tell them that, hey, we have a certain goals and that's why they take us. But then suddenly, in a certain point in our life, maybe that changes, right? So basically, we can relate that this happens and it's okay because we're humans after all, right? And like from Miss Pixie's speech, we should try everything because we don't know, we can never know what we love eventually. So yeah, so we should just stay positive as a YK scholar, continue serving our community and strive as a YK scholar as well. So now we open the floor for Q&A.
If you guys have any questions, it's always very awkward when no one asks anything. So take note. I'm sitting up here. It's very awkward if you don't ask anything. So you guys ask any questions that relate to what I was talking about, or if you guys feel like you want to share about if something similar has happened to you, do share as well. I'm sure most of us will really want to hear about that too.
Hello, Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Ulfa, and I am from International IIUM. Miss Pixie, I want to ask, you said that you choose Islam because you think that other religion is not make any sense, right? Why you said like that? Thank you.
Thank you for asking. So my family, we grew up as, my parents grew up sort of like atheists. Not really atheists, but people from the 70s. It was very common, because my father's from Canada, mother's from Europe. She was under the Soviet Union. So based on the environment itself, religion wasn't something very strong. But both my parents were really curious about religions. So I remember me as a kid, I was in Buddhist temples. When I got too naughty, my parents got upset at me. I got sent to a Buddhist monastery for a month once. We went to Hindu temples. We had Ganesha shrines at home. We experimented with many religions. And in my family, we have a tradition of comparative religions. So we will learn about every single religion. and to see which one fits our own lifestyle the best. For my parents, it was something very common for them that they really, really hated alcohol. They hated that in the West, you needed alcohol to have fun. In Canada, in Europe, it's like if you're 18 and you can't drink a whole bottle at once, you are useless. They have that mindset there. And this is girl, boy, same. No difference. There's no discrimination when it comes to drinking. So both of them felt like that, and they didn't like how people couldn't connect without alcohol. And when I lived in Penang for 2 years in Georgetown. I went to public school there. And I wanted to, you have agama, what's the, Sekolah Agama is religious studies, right? So there's a moral class for non-Muslims, and there's religious studies for Muslims. Moral class was stupid. It was stupid. It was teaching food pyramids and things that were outdated 5-10 years ago from the West. So when my parents were looking at this, why are we teaching stuff from the 90s? In the 2000s, it did not make any sense. And they wanted me to go for Sekolah Agama, so religious study classes. So we spoke to the school and they didn't allow, because they're like, oh no, only Muslims can study that, talk about discrimination. And my parents really wanted us to take the course. At that time, we have already lived in Penang for 2 years, and they saw how Muslim people in Malaysia can have fun with syrup bandung. That is a culture shock. Even for me growing up, I came back here, I saw people at parties, syrup bandung, you serious away. It was very, very weird. But it was really interesting how they saw a way of life, how people can have fun without drinking. So by this time, they're already interested in Islam. By this time, we're already studying all of these things. And on the way back, my parents were speaking to an imam. On the way back home, the imam told us that, sorry, we can't let, the school will not allow a non-Muslim to go for religious studies. And then on the way home, my parents looked at each other, let's just convert her. Okay. Yeah, so that's how it happened. And they came back home and said, hey guys, we're converging with or without you. And then we said, hey, no woman, you're not going to convert without us. We were like, you're not going to do anything cool without us. That's not fair. And this is me at 7. We were like, no, don't you dare. No, sorry, 9 years old, 9. And so the whole family converted to Islam. We were in Penang. And that's that. That's why.
Any more questions, guys?
Hi, Avinash from the University of Reading, Malaysia. So,
Okay.
hi. So my question is, over the last 1 or 2 years, you've been doing community building. In your experience in doing community building, what is the most important aspect that you have found within this particular industry, this role? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for the question, and I love that you're asking about community building. The important aspect, I would say, at the end of the day, community building is creating engagements among people. You're creating environments. The unfortunate thing is that community building as a profession is not very mature. And this is not talking about Malaysia alone. This is looking at worldwide. You have some places that did create metrics and did create better systems of creating communities. But as we know, humans are different, and communities are very different as well. So for me, what I love about community building, what's important is the methods of a sustainable way of creating engagement. Not just looking at the hit and run, oh yeah, I did an event, so what? What does the event mean? What is the follow through? How do you get all of these people to create still this strong bond? And this is similar to what you guys here are doing with YK, with the scholars together. This is a community. How eventually you will help him, he will help the other person. And you guys know that even when you guys leave, there's still this bond together because you guys hold that same identity. And that identity creates the community together. But it really comes to the organizers and the people who create engagements among you guys to really form that bond. And that bond is so important to make it sustainable. So yes, this is my answer to that. Thank you.
Okay. I'm here. I'm Hamza, studying PhD in electrical engineering. Actually, I really believe in perfect planning in your life. When I was kid, 10 years old, I decided to be an electrical engineer, and I am now a PhD in electrical engineering. So I really plan in my life step by step. So that's why I want to ask you, because I am really interested to know how the other kind of people are thinking.
Other kind of people.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Because there are two people, perfect planning and the other kind who get bored always. So do you think if you decided when you were a kid, if you decided to be a community builder, would it help you much better than now? Would your achievements and goals would be better, much better than now? Do you think that?
Very good question. Because it's community building, I think not. For one, I am envious to human beings who had a goal in life and actually managed to do it. I respect those people so much, and I feel that I sometimes wish I had that luxury of knowing what I wanted and really follow through. But because the nature of community building itself, the main reason why I'm relatively good at doing that is because I have experience doing different things. So I've learned how to look through different lenses. And as a community builder, that is a very important aspect, because you need to be able to build a community, love it, but be able to step back and realize that you do not matter in the equation. It is the community, it's the people who matter. You as the builder, you're just the architect in a way. And you need to learn how to step back and be like, it's okay, but I have to look at it a different way. It's nothing personal at this moment. So because as a community builder, that's why I think I wouldn't be as good, because it came with maturity to be able to do this. My personal opinion though.
Okay, but you can get also experience, a good experience in your life, but you will push your experience to be a community builder, not in a random way.
So you mean that I know that I'm going to be a community builder, and then I go have certain experiences in order to achieve the goal of becoming a community builder. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, a bit like this.
Maybe not. You never know. And that's what's so beautiful. There's so many different people. Maybe this math equation makes more sense on my side, but maybe for another person, it would have completely screwed up. Because it's not only about you at times. It's the environments you are in. It's that moment. Maybe if I knew 10 years ago that a community builder is what I wanted, but there's nothing around, I have no environment to support me, then probably that would have discouraged me as well. Especially being 10 years ago with a less mature mindset, maybe it wouldn't have worked out. But it could be in any way. I don't think there's an ultimate answer to this one, because every single person's different, the environment you're in are different as well. But again, kudos to the people who had their shit figured out a long time ago.
Hello, Miss Pixie. I'm Naku, and I have a question for you. I'm pretty sure you're aware about the China's encampment of Uyghur minorities. Yes. And as a community builder, I'm not saying that the responsibility is on your shoulder as of right now, but because the situation is very disheartening, very heartbreaking, what can you actually do? What you think that we can actually help to contribute about towards the China's encampment on Muslim minorities? Thank you, and Assalamualaikum.
Thank you very much, Walaikum Assalam, for that question. So I grew up, most of my life, everyone thought I was Uyghur, because in China, when they look at me, I looked way more Chinese when I was younger for some reason. But my eyes were large, so everyone thought I was Uyghur. A lot of my friends were Uyghurs, and the situation over there, you guys cannot imagine how it is like. What you guys see on the newspaper, that is already a very watered down version. The reality is, even me thinking about it gets me upset. As a community builder, it's very, very important that you have that on your shoulder. But again, every single community builder is different, and they have different focuses in life. Answering your question about what, anyway, Malaysian youth, in a sense, can do for this situation, there is one, having that awareness out there. And I know for a lot of you may feel that, you know what, awareness is empty. It doesn't mean anything just because I talk about this. But the problem is, in China's situation, people are not talking about it. You have mainland Chinese from a province away that has no clue what is happening in Xinjiang. And when Uyghurs talk about it, they feel that those people are just making stories up. This is when the power of news comes in. But then there's the issue about the control of the Chinese government has over this news. The balance is crazy, and it's sometimes not easy for you to accept that. You know what? Sometimes there's nothing you can do, which I don't accept that at all. At this stage, honestly, I really don't know enough. I wish I knew. To me, I feel that it was important to have at least the mainland Chinese know what's happening, because we are too far away from the ocean. What we can do is to make sure mainland Chinese, people in China, realize the situation. Some people may see it, hear rumors, but they don't understand how serious it is. In China, you talk about what's happening in the Middle East. They're talking about, they say, oh yeah, Muslims wearing black niqab, those people are evil. But they're talking about Middle Easterners. They are not looking back home what is happening at home to people that share their same passport. That information is not shared. And right now, again, I don't know what to do. But one thing I hope and I feel that will make a difference is to at least have the locals understand what's happening. And if, let's say, you guys have connections in China, studying there, any ways that you feel that this information could be translated out, could be communicated out for people to understand the bigger picture of things. Because when you're looking at Xinjiang, you're not talking about an issue of government having on another race or religion. Religion doesn't matter at that moment. Think about the reason why this is happening is the geographical reason. The positioning of where Xinjiang is between Russia and all the other countries. If they lose that land, that's a complete different level. It is not because they're Muslims. Take note of that when we're talking about the situation. It's not because they're Muslims. It just so happens these people are a minority on a piece of land that is very, very important to a country. And just so happens they're Muslims. So when you're communicating these things, don't push on they're suppressing Muslims. It's not about Muslims. It really isn't. It's a political decision. And they felt that that land with oil, with all the gems and really good things, they cannot let that go. They can't afford to. So make sure this information is clear with people. And I know that Muslims sometimes want, when we are helping other Muslims, we want to push more on the religion side. This is the moment when I feel we should not, because it doesn't let us objectively look at the real problems. So that's my answer. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. I was very interested to hear about your building communities projects, because this is very new to me and sounds like something I might want to try as well. What I would like to ask you is, can you share some things you've done in building communities, some things which you're passionate about? How do you choose them? How do you decide that these communities you want to build?
Thank you for your question. Welcome, Salam, by the way. For me, I'll use an example with legal tech. So legal tech is legal technology. I just started looking into this from April this year. I fell in love with the idea because I was always interested in law. I remember on the way to school, I will be reading case studies and reading law. That was my hobby. I enjoyed reading all the clauses. It was so fascinating to me. And I kind of forgot that I was in love with that. And because I was in tech with startups for about a few years, when I came across legal tech, it was my ex-boss who invited me to this meeting, and I'm like, oh, this is what we're talking about, okay. And when I heard about it, I'm like, of course, why didn't I think about legal technology? It is so important to not only look at the productivity of lawyers, but to me was the access to justice. So when, answer your question, how I choose a community, is when I feel very, very passionate. Either I feel passionate about it, or I believe that it's something important to our society. I don't need to like something to know that it is important. This is something very important as a community builder to realize. So how I started building the legal tech community in Malaysia, I brought over a chapter from the US. It's called Legal Hackers. So we don't hack people, just by the way. The Bar Council thinks we hack people. It's very, very awkward. But legal hackers, what we're doing is bridging the bridge between law and technology. This bridge to help the society. And when we started out, we were doing events, community events, but I wanted to make sure other people, especially lawyers, knew what was happening. So what I did, this kind of guerrilla warrior style, I went and messaged about 30% of all lawyers in Klang Valley on LinkedIn. Every single one, I personally messaged them, say, hi, Nabila, I'm Pixie, I'm building a legal tech community in Malaysia, hope to connect. Every single person was a personalized message. You have to make sure when you are fighting for a cause, whether it be Uyghurs in China, whether it be legal technology, whether it be making cups, let the world know you're doing that. Because the community only works with other people. If you just shout out like a warrior yourself, it's honestly useless. And it's sad sometimes that you feel like you're saying something and people are not listening. But if people are not listening, figure out how you can communicate this better. So as a community builder, advocate or anything, let people know what you are working on. So I made sure anyone who has even a LinkedIn account in legal, at least 30% of them knew my name, knew what I was going for, knew what I was trying to build. I made sure I pushed out communication and did events. I invited relevant people. And after a while, for some reason, people thought I was a lawyer, which disclaimer, I'm not a lawyer. They started understanding that there's this thing happening, there's this movement happening. And slowly more people come on board. Then we were doing a hackathon, because we realized that we all agree on legal technology, the importance of it. No one's doing anything. Everyone is waiting for the other law firm, waiting for Zico, waiting for the other person to start implementing legal technology. So what next? Make them take action. When advocacy doesn't work anymore, or just going in one ear and going out the other one, you force them to take an action. And in the legal tech perspective, we did a hackathon because we knew people were just talking. This hackathon, we took around 2 months or so. I just posted on LinkedIn saying, guys, I want to run this hackathon. Who wants to volunteer and help me organize this? No pay, yeah? All for free. And to my surprise, in one day, around 40 people reached out to me. Some were lawyers, some were technologists, some were random students with too much free time on their hands. But the people came together. The hackathon just finished 2 weeks ago. It's the first ever legal tech hackathon in Malaysia, bringing in bar councils, participants from Singapore, Indonesia as well. And it was I remember at the end, when I closed the session, there was a moment where everyone was just hugging each other, like, oh my God, we did it. We finally did this. But we knew that we could not do that without making sure our message is clear. The hackathon created 20 products, 20 legal tech ideas that was developed within 30 hours and top 10 people. And these things, yes, they're not the most mature thing. Not necessarily we think they're going to become the next unicorn, the next Uber, the next Airbnb, but they took action. So as a community builder, you want to create environments for people to become the better version of themselves in any kind of topic. So that's my answer.
Hi, Miss Pixie. I would like to say thank you for your insightful talk, and I admire your bravery and courage. However, taking any action comes with a risk. And in a situation where you can't afford to lose a lot of things, how do you make the decision which risk is worth pursuing? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very good question. So generally, my personal rule of thumb, I don't like to take risk with other people. But I'm fine with taking risk when it's to myself. So when I'm going into a situation that it could be very, very scary, that I know I will, if I manage through, it will really improve me, then I'll take the risk. But I'm always very, very conscious of when I'm taking a risk with other people. I don't expect other people to feel the same way. And I will evaluate if I took this risk, if I can only take 3 risks, let's say example, and I had to let go of one, I will do the calculation. I like to do the math behind these things to see that what's the pros and cons and how much benefit I can have. If let's say, here's a stupid risk for university students especially, should I take drugs? is that worthy of a risk? It's gonna make me a cool kid. I want to smoke some. That's not that risk is not worth it. So do your math behind it. If you really, really feel that, you know what, hey, that risk is worth it, by all means. It's your life. But make sure you link back and understand what are the consequences. And sometimes some consequences are necessary in life. But you are the one, it's your life. Even if I think something is not worth it, if you feel it's important, you do it. Fuck me, don't care about other people. But care people in a way that understand what are consequences. So that's my answer.
We'll take last question for this.
Hello, Miss Pitsy. Thank you for coming and spending time with us. I'm Humaira, a project ed scholar. I noticed from your talk that you said you often find yourself to be to get bored, and when you get bored, you find yourself to have no goals, and when you have no goals, you feel useless. So as far as I'm concerned, that feeling of uselessness can trigger depression. So I'm sorry to ask this if this is quite sensitive to you, but does it, along your journey, when you were seeking for your goal, have you ever been depressed? If you did, how did you cope with that, and how did you do your mind controlling? Thank you.
So to answer, yes, all the time. There were times that I was so lost and wasn't sure if I could make it through. I couldn't talk to my family because everyone around me said, Pixie, of course you can do it. Everyone looked at me and expected the firstborn child, the child who, oh, she's been working since she's young, she knows how to do these things, to be able to cope and understand what to do. But the reality, it wasn't. You still get depressed. And it's important to talk about this sometimes because you will look at a person and feel that the person has it all together, not realizing there's a lot behind. And when you feel that the ideal person doesn't have any problems, then you look at yourself even worse. Because you know you have problems, then you think you're not ideal anymore, which is completely not true. To answer your question about how I coped with it, mask therapy. I like doing masks. No, legit. Sometimes when I'm very overworked and I'm feeling like very, very overwhelmed, I will hide away in my room, read novels, and do masks and just Pixie, chill for a while. I have found different ways throughout my life to be able to channel my feelings out. So putting myself in a very calm position. Have you guys heard about this app called Whisper? Yes. Whisper is one way I do. Sometimes when I feel that people will not understand me and I don't feel comfortable telling it through my own identity, I have felt that it has helped me when I say it out with an anonymous account. With an account that people don't know it's me and they don't know what is the face, what is the personality saying these words. I have felt that helped me. But again, everyone's different. I don't recommend, I used to keep a journal. I stopped doing that because I didn't feel secure. And of course, we're talking about the internet here, right? How secure can that be? But I felt more comfortable. I like to use Whisper. I like to make sure that I have my me times that I keep to myself, very quiet. I go to the movies alone. The movie ticket people sometimes give me that look, but that's a way when I'm dealing with so many people, how to be like, okay, you know what? Let me have a moment for myself. Because right now, if I don't handle myself, I cannot handle other people. So give yourself time and figure out a way how you can communicate what you feel in the way you feel most comfortable at that moment. I'm not telling you to go tell your family members that you're depressed. If you feel that you will be even more stressed by saying that, then don't. Find the best channel. I like Whisper. That's just for me.
Okay, thank you so much, Miss Pixie, for the very insightful speech and Q&A session. I hope.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ruhaini. I'm from Bangladesh, and thanks to Yayasan Khazana, I'm now in Malaysia doing my PhD in IIUM. Today, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Muhammad Ashraf Iqbal. Dr. Muhammad Ashraf Iqbal is the founder of Mindspring Sendirian Berhad, which is an advisory firm specializing in business performance solutions, focusing on knowledge-based organizations. He's a strategy and performance expert in Mindspring. Dr. Ashraf holds a PhD in Islamic banking and finance, a postgraduate diploma in Islamic studies, a master's in business administration, and a Bachelor of Science in mechanical engineering. He has worked across a spectrum of roles, organizations, and geographical locations. He was the chairman of HSBC Amana and is currently a member of the Sharia committee at HSBC Amana. He was previously a director of the Fairview International Schools, which is a large network of fully accredited international baccalaureate schools in Malaysia. In his roles as an executive, he has held various positions in HR, distribution, and business re-engineering in Shell, Malaysia. He was the general manager for human resources in Proton Berhad, and from then on, the managing director for Proton in UK. This was followed by a stint in consulting as a regional director of Hay Group, followed by his appointment as group managing director for a European automotive company. I'd like to invite Dr. Ashraf for his session. A big round of applause for Dr.
Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? Everyone good? Yeah. After Pixie, you can't beat that, isn't it? Okay, I'm holding my phone here not because I'm trying to do WhatsApp, but I'm controlling my laptop from here because they can't put the laptop up here, okay? So, let me just juggle this. Okay, so I've got an hour, and in this hour, I've been asked to talk about what does it take to be a leader. So can I quickly ask you, why would you be interested in this subject? Anyone? Why would you be interested in this? Sorry? Go ahead. You just got invited, so you're here for the free food. Okay, that's a very good answer. Yeah. Anyone else? Why would you be interested in this topic? What does it take to be a leader? Someone has to be. No, I'm asking why would you be interested in it? Somebody is interested in the free food, so that's why he's here. Yes, sir. Shout out, please. Okay, so that's why you're interested, right? Fantastic. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Please mention your name because Kamarul is writing down. Encik Kamarul is writing down behind the.
My name is Hussein, and I'm interested in this. If I can be a leader, then I don't have to be led by the others, and I can set the rules for the others.
Ah, he wants to set the rules for others. Very good. Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else? Yes, sir. Akil, okay. Okay. So a leader spreads change. Yeah? All right, fantastic. Anyone else? Ladies? Ladies? Ah, yes.
Hello. Okay. Perhaps because I believe that each and every one of us, we are a leader. And not just other people, but first and foremost to ourselves.
Okay.
We are a leader and we need to lead ourselves first before we can lead other people. So
right.
yeah.
Very nice, very nice. From this side, anyone else on this side? Yes, no? Yes. Your name, please. Tam. Okay. 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 What do you mean million others? Clarify. I'm curious, who are these million others? Huh? No, I don't. Go ahead. All right, thank you very much. So there are different reasons why people will be interested in this subject. Okay, so as we go through it over the next maybe 30 minutes, and then we have Q&A, think about what your interest is. All right? Think about what your interest is so that your mind can focus. And then if you've got questions, we'll pick up the questions at the end. Boleh tak? Boleh? All right. So, okay, doesn't come out. Can you read it from the back? I always worry about the colors. Okay, so we'll do a short introduction, then I'll talk about the goal of leadership. Okay, what is the purpose of leadership? What's the goal of leadership? And then a bit of understanding leadership. Let's try to understand what it is, because people use the word very broadly nowadays. Everything is leader. Yeah. And then I will talk specifically about 3 things that a leader does. Okay, this is what a leader does, and then the characteristics of the leader. And then we end up with a Q&A. Okay. Ken, will that work? Yeah? Okay. So I always start by reminding people this. Both Gandhi and Hitler were leaders. So leaders can take society. One wanted to build great societies, the other wanted to destroy societies. But the framework, the title is still a leader, isn't it? Okay. So we need to be very careful when we talk about leadership. What does it mean? What is the context? What is the purpose of leadership? Yeah. And for this, I always say, leadership is about creation of a just society. Is Pixie still here? Where is she? Yeah? Ah, there she is. Yeah? So in her talk just now, the word justice came out, I think, 4 times. Okay, so there must be something important about this thing called being a just and creating a just society. And within this just society, there are 3 legs to it. Okay, the first bit is about yourself and your family. Then the second is the community. So Pixie spent a lot of time talking about community building. This is why it's important. And then the third one is the organization. Okay, so leadership is not just about the guy who's the CEO or this or it is everybody in all these different contexts. But society cannot function. You cannot have good society if families are broken. You cannot have good society if communities are broken. And you cannot have good society if organizations are broken. So you need all 3 of them. Makes sense or not? Huh? Makes sense, huh? So the question is, what does the word just mean? And why does a just society matter? So anybody want to try, what does the word just mean? When you say the word just, what does it mean? Just, J-U-S-T. Huh? Adil, keadilan. Fair. It is both equitable. So just society is a society that is equitable. A just society is where everybody within whatever your capability is, you are able to excel. A just society, whether you are strong or weak, there is justice for everyone. Okay, that is what a just society is about. It's about a fair society. It's about inclusive society. No one is left behind. So very important. Okay, but why does it matter? Why is it important? Why is it important to have a just society? Pardon? To prevent? So one of it is to prevent conflicts. If you look in the history of the world, all conflicts have started because of some form of injustice. So when Pixie was talking about the Uyghurs in China, the conflict is never about religion. It's always about politics. And politics is always about oppression and suppression. Is somebody wanting to take control over somebody else. Correct or not? So as you grow up, you got to think about these things, because that's the world you're going to enter into. You're entering into the most exciting time of human history. You're also entering into the most complicated, confusing time of human history. So it's very important you think about these things, because what you're going to do over the next 20 years is going to shape society. It will shape the country. It will shape you. It will shape your families, your children. Okay? So the question is, when is leadership required? When do you need leadership? The moment there are 2 or more people, you already need leadership. So all the time that you are going in school, right? Do you realize or not? When it's just you and another friend, it's very easy to get things done. Yes or no? Right? What happens when the third person joins? It starts to become a bit more complicated, isn't it? True or not? Right? And the problem is, the reason it becomes complicated is because human beings are designed to be unpredictable. Even we cannot predict ourselves. So part of the role of leadership is to try and reduce this unpredictability in order for society to have some shape, in order for families to have some shape. The challenge for leadership is very simple. How do you get people to cooperate, and how to get people to coordinate? That's why when it's 2, it's very easy. If you got 2 people, and you say, okay, let's decide where to go to makan, it's quite easy to decide, isn't it? Huh? It is never, okay, I tell you what, when you say no, it is not easy when you are over hungry. When you're moderately hungry, it's quite easy. When you're overly hungry, you look at the menu, you cannot even decide which one you want to take. Yes or not? When you're moderately hungry, you look at the menu and say, okay, I just have this. But the moment you are over hungry, betul-betul lapar, you look at the menu, you can't even choose. I want this, I want this, I want this, and then whatever comes, ayo, my friend's one looks better. Yes or not? Yeah. This is the unpredictability in the human nature. Okay? So the challenge is how to get people to cooperate and coordinate. 2, easy enough. And the reason why 2 is easy enough is because information is still perfect. What I know, what you know is very easy. The moment you bring the third person in, information becomes imperfect. If 1, there's no worry. You know everything, correct or not? 2, how many of you have got problems with girlfriends or boyfriends? Your problem is information asymmetry. Some things you know, you don't want to tell them. Some things they know, they don't want to tell you. So what happens is you start to read in between the lines, make guesses and wrong accusations. That's when all the problems starts. The minute it becomes 3, the complexity goes up by 1,000-fold. It becomes 4, even more complex. Becomes 5, even more complex. Makes sense or not so far? Okay? And the reason it is like this, because there are 3 things about the human being. The human being, number one, has got desire. And the human being desire is insatiable. Tak boleh puas. Our desire is insatiable. So if you go into Starbucks, how many types of coffee do you think you can get in a Starbucks? Huh? If you sit there and count the menu, how many types? Right? Do we really need all those different types of coffees? No, isn't it? We just need one. But because of human beings being insatiable, the nafsu, the desire, that's why you end up with all this. Okay, so that's one part. The second part about the human being is we got the freedom to choose. And for you all as students, your ultimate choice is nak belajar or tak nak belajar. It's a choice. It's not that your subject is difficult ke, your lecturer is no good ke apa. It's your choice. Nak ke, tak nak. It's very simple. So part of the leader's challenge is how to make everybody make the same choice. And the third one is our ability to rationalize. So I'm sure you've been hearing Cik Kamarul and Puan Intan telling you must get 4.0. Yes, huh? Did they say that? Has it been said already today? Yes or no? Huh? Or first class or whatever, right? And then you don't get it. Very rarely you say, actually the problem was myself. I was lazy, I didn't study. What do? We blame my teacher no good, my friend no good, correct or not? So our capacity to rationalize and justify our actions is what makes us very difficult. Okay? So remember this, as human beings we got desire, which is insatiable. Tak boleh nak puas. So if a lion is hungry, does he go and eat everything he can see, or he just eats until he's kenyang? He eats until he's kenyang and then he goes to sleep. So animals, they can fulfill their desire and get on with life. Manusia cannot. Second is the freedom to choose. Nak tak nak, the ultimate freedom to choose that we have is the choice of who to call God. Think about that. Correct or not? Ultimate choice. Who are you going to call? God. God could have easily said when he created everybody, hey, okay, you're going to call me God. He could have, he's God, right? He says, no, I give you that freedom. You go and decide. You go and figure it out. That's the ultimate freedom we have to choose. And then our ability to rationalize. Okay? Are we okay so far? Yes? Yeah? So what is it that a leader does? Leader does three things. Number one, leader has to provide hope. If you as a leader don't provide hope, you think anybody going to follow you? No, isn't it? Right? So number one very important is must provide hope. Hope for what? Tomorrow is going to be better than today. In whatever that means. Okay? The second thing that a leader does is the leader builds trust. Trust among the people and among the people and the leader. Because if you don't trust the leader, what happens? What happens? Sometimes you cannot choose, correct or not? The leader is there, you have to follow. But if you don't trust the leader, what happens? Think in your own persatuan and all that. When in school you have, correct or not? What happens when you don't trust the leader? But then you're not going to follow, right? You may say yes, and then you go and do something else. So the leader has to work very hard at building trust. And the third one is a leader has to deliver results. Okay? So let me just break this down a bit for you. It is actually very difficult to. So part of providing hope as a leader is you got to set direction. So as Pixie was talking about her community building, and at the end she was talking about the legal tech. Legal tech, is it? Yeah? So you will see all of this in play. Setting the direction, right? Where is it that we're going to go? You got to start make decisions. The worst thing a leader can do is to not make a decision. Right or wrong, that's the second part of it. Step number one is you got to make a decision. Okay? And then the hardest part I always say of leadership is resolving conflict. Bang, apa cerita ni bang? Sorry? Are we good? Yeah? Okay. So one of the hardest jobs is to resolve conflicts. So you sit in a group with people, this fellow gaduh with that fellow, yes or not? Right? You got to resolve the conflict lah. And you cannot run away from it. Because what happens when the leader runs away from conflict? What happens to the conflict? It gets even worse. What happens to the group, the team then? Hancur. Okay. All right, next one. Builds trust. Okay. So you want to build trust, people have to be competent. If you put incompetent people to do anything, doesn't matter whatever, after a while people are going to stop trusting. Because there's no ability to do. And it's not the fault of the person who wasn't competent to do it. It's the fault of the leader for putting an incapable person into that role. Okay. And then you need to make sure that whatever people are supposed to do, there is role clarity. So in Pixie's legal tech thing, I'm sure she spent a lot of time getting people to be clear. You do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. Correct or not? Right? Once people are clear about what their roles is, they need to be also clear about what the goal is. You're clear about your role, you're clear about goal, you're competent, you will do it yourself. You know what to do. Okay? And then finally is to deliver results. This is all about keeping promises. Keeping promises means you sign the contract with Khazanah. You have a contract with Khazanah, isn't it? With YK, isn't it? Right? And in there you've made promises to YK, isn't it? Keep that promise. It's as basic as that. Deliver what you promise. Because the moment you don't deliver what you promise, will people trust you after that? Got any more credibility? No. You can sit down and say, oh no, I tried my best, I did, but this, but that. All that is trying to justify. Okay? And the last bit is to hold people accountable. So if you make that promise, you got to hold the person accountable for the promise. One day when you all grow up, or you all grown up already, and you've got children, then you see how hard is it to make sure your children keep their promises, and how hard it is to hold them accountable to the promises that they make. Okay? Leadership at the workplace is all very easy. The hard part is leadership in the house. What does it take to be a leader? The ability to differentiate between what is true and what is truth. What is true versus what is the truth? What's the difference? Pardon? Bigger picture. True, a thing can be true because of my perception, my assumption, my, but what may be true to me may not be true to you. Whereas truth has to be universal. It must be true to everybody. Any engineering students in here? No? Any put up your hands, engineering? 1, 2, 3, okay. So if I say to you 9.81 meters per second square, is that true or truth? Huh? What is 9.81 meters per second square? Huh? Okay, gravitational. Is that true or truth? Huh? True or truth? Not truth. Why? Pardon? Is different everywhere. What is the truth for gravitation, for gravity? G times m1 times m2 divided by r1 minus r2 square. And then it doesn't matter where you are in the universe, it is the same thing. That is the difference between truth and true. So 9.81 meters per second square is true on Earth, but not on the moon. E equals mc square is truth. So part of our challenge in leadership is to be able to distinguish what is true and how do we get to the truth. Okay? So that's what this picture is about. So a lot of times people will say, hey, no, this is true. The other guy will say, this is true. All depending on perspective. And your job as the leader is to get down to it and say, look, our job is to find out which is the truth. Okay, no? Make sense, no? So in order for you to do that, the first thing you need is you must have this thing which we call a worldview. So what does a worldview mean? A worldview means is you must have some view of the world. Okay? You must have an opinion about the world. So it's interesting, I was listening to Pixie talking, how much of her worldview was coming out in her talk. Sorry, I keep using you as an example because you just went before me. You know? I hope you don't mind. You know? So when she says, you know, for Canadians to have fun, they got to drink a lot of alcohol. That's a worldview. Okay. Okay. How do you develop this worldview? Acquisition of knowledge. You can only do this with knowledge. You cannot do it without knowledge. And for that, you need to read a lot. And you need to read widely. Not only you have to read a lot, but you got to go and read very wide. Because then it expands your mind, your understanding of things. And then you must have an opinion. So that means when your lecturers are teaching you, you have the ability to say, you know, that's interesting, you say this, but this is what I think about it. That's having a opinion. Now, you do that too many times in Malaysia, they'll tell you to, please, don't ask so many questions. So, got to be careful here. Yeah? But that's what it is. So, anybody who tells you something, you should evaluate it and be able to have an opinion, as opposed to taking it as the truth. Then your mind starts to expand. The second bit is, you need to have a set of personal characteristics. So I want to talk about these characteristics. So there are two bits to it. Number one is there are virtues. These are characteristics you must have. If you want to be a good leader, doesn't matter whether you want to lead your family or you want to lead, doesn't matter. But this is what you must have. Okay, they call the virtues. The vices are the things that you should not have. The first one is you must have wisdom. You must have wisdom. So when people ask, oh, but what is wisdom? Wisdom is to know a thing by its correct name, or to know a thing by its correct nature. That's what wisdom is. You look at something and you actually know what is the correct name, its nature, its attributes. That is wisdom. Then you need to have a sense of justice. See, this justice thing keeps coming up. And justice means to be able to put a thing in its correct place. So if wisdom is to know a thing by its correct, why are you doing this to me? Kenapa ni? I think I know what. If the battery is going, or it's switching off. Is there another one that works? Does this work? Yeah? So the second one is justice. Okay. Yeah. To put a thing in its correct place. Then the third one is courage. What is courage? That when you see something that is unjust or unjust, you have the courage to speak up, do something about it. Because the opposite of that is cowardice. That is to run away, or to ignore it, or to say it's okay lah. And the fourth one is temperance. And temperance is the ability to have self-control over your own self. So that when you act, you do not act out of anger, you do not act out of jealousy, etc., but you act out of your rational mind, as opposed to your irrational mind. So these are the four characteristics you must have. You want to see somebody who doesn't have it? Just watch Donald Trump. Yeah. And if you want to see somebody who has it, you watch Barack Obama, and you will see the difference. They both sit in the same office, correct or not? They're both the president of the United States. One guy speaks with wisdom, right? The other guy speaks like an idiot. The vices, the things that you must not have. So now you start to think of Donald Trump. Okay. First one is hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is defined as lying, breaking promises, or betraying trust. That's hypocrisy. This one you cannot have, must not have. Get rid of it. The second one is envy, being envious of people. Because all envy does is wants to take away what others have, so that they don't have it anymore. The third one is slander. I know you all do a lot of this. You sit down and you talk about people, correct or not? Hey, you know, that is slander lah. Don't do it. You get that WhatsApp message, cannot confirm whether it's true or not, you go and forward it on somehow, yes or not? Because why? The story is very juicy. The story is very juicy, but you don't know whether it's true or not. That is slander. Okay? And finally is avarice. Avarice is, in Malay, we say kedekut or bakhil. You want to take everything for yourself. So that's the one you want to get rid of. So whether if you want to know which one you are, or which ones you need to develop more and which ones you need to get rid more, you need to start to put these things to practice and generate self-awareness. Every time you do things, ask yourself in your heart, why am I doing it? What's the reason that I want to do this? Is it for good or is it for bad? Because your soul inside will whisper things to you, and it can take you left or right. Now, outside people cannot see, but inside you actually know the reason. So start to become conscious of this, and then get feedback from people. Hey, do you see me like this or do you see me like that? The best person to people to get feedback are those closest to you. You got wife, ask your wife. Got girlfriend, ask your girlfriend. Don't ask baru nak start dating lah, because at that time everything is fantastic. Right? Ask a bit later on. The most honest with these things are always your children. Now you all don't have children lah. But children will always tell you exactly as it is. Okay? So last one, how is leadership manifested? How do we see this in people? The first thing is through one's adab. What is adab? Through one's manners. Adab is right action that springs from self-discipline. I want you to focus on the words that have been highlighted. Right action that springs from self-discipline, founded upon knowledge of which the source is wisdom. That's what adab is. Okay. Adab is the spectacle of justice. See, again, it goes back to this concept of justice. It's the spectacle of justice as it is a reflection by wisdom. Sorry, it shouldn't be its reflection, it should be it's reflected by wisdom. So the starting component is wisdom. And because you're all YK scholars, use this opportunity to get as much wisdom as you can. Because in the end, education is about the absorption of adab into the self. And that's what a YK scholar is all about. By the time you finish this, you come out a morally refined person who thinks with wisdom, who acts with justice, who stands with courage, and got self-control over the self. Okay. So that's my short presentation. We will stop here and open it up now for questions and answers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doctor. So, what do we think? What do we normally think when we hear leader? We think fat salary, power, standing tall. But what we learned from Dr. Ashraf's speech today is that it's overwhelmingly about. What would you say? What is the one word you would say is leadership about? Justice. Yeah? We've heard that word several times today. It's about doing justice, not just to the organization, to your family first, to your community, and then to the organization. And we learned about what are the characteristics of leaders, what are the virtues, what are the vices, and that a leader has to have a world view, which means we need to go back home and read, because unless we read, we can't widen our knowledge and we won't appreciate things and we won't have the world view. And what are the three things a leader needs to do? A leader needs to provide hope, build trust, and lastly, deliver results. Now I open the floor to everyone for questions. Any questions? Don't you want to become leaders?
Test. Hi. Good afternoon, sir. My name is Muda Ching and I'm a mechanical engineering student. So my question is, at what point in your life did you decide to switch fields from engineering into finance? And then the second question is, can you share some relevant experience about making subordinates accountable? Thank you.
Okay, so there are two questions. First one was, at what point did I decide to switch?
Yeah.
Right? And the second one was, how do I make subordinates accountable?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first one is very easy.
Thank you.
The only reason I studied engineering was because if I was going to go to a scholarship, I wanted to go and study something that was interesting enough to justify the scholarship. So I was very clear, I didn't want to go and do business or marketing or, you know. Oh, I'm just telling you, right? So I said, okay, if I'm going to do this, let me go and do engineering. And why engineering? Because of its discipline in problem solving. But I never in my life wanted to be an engineer. That's why after I finished my engineering, immediately I went to do my MBA. But I, as a person, never had aspiration to be an engineer. Okay? My hope was to be an investment banker on Wall Street. That was the plan then. Okay? So that's really what the starting point was. Beyond that, I have never sat down and had career ambitions. I want to be this or be that or be that. My focus was whatever job I was going to do, I just wanted to make sure nobody else could do it better than me. That was number one. And as I'm telling you some of these things, you can check with Encik Kamarul, because Encik Kamarul was my boss, you know, in Sabah. So that was number one. Number two, I had a manager, his name was Rick Brown. And he said this to me, that time I was a fresh graduate. He said to me, always sit down and look at your boss's boss. And figure out what your boss's boss wants. And if you keep doing that, things will move for you. Because anything you do for your boss, actually he wants to give it to his boss, correct? Right? So I just focus on those two things. Whatever I had to do, make sure I'm the best at doing it, and always sit down and see what is it that my boss's boss wanted. From there, things just went on. I never planned to go into banking. When as a fresh graduate, I was offered a job by 2 banks. I said, no, I don't want to go into banking, although they were the highest paying. I started with Shell. Shell had the lowest offer, 1,965. One bank offered me 3,200 ringgit, but I said no, I still went to Shell. Yeah? So it wasn't about the money. But from there, things just, the doors will open and you make choices, go left or go right. Each one is a 50-50. So you got to just at that point decide whether you want to go left or go right. Did I sit down and think I was going to become GM or MD or this or this? The answer is no. These things will come. All you need to do is just be the best at what you are. Whatever that job that you are given, if right now your job is to be a student, just be the best student you can be. Because in life, there is no time for regret. There's no point saying, I wish I had studied harder. That's what most of you all will go through on your day of your graduation. You will see people getting their, what do you call this? Honor mentions and all that, and you'll be, I wish. Too late, what? Correct or not? Right? So that's the first part. Who asked the question just now? I can't see, it's very bright, you asked. Okay, so that's the first part. Second part, holding people accountable is very simple. Whatever you promise, just make sure you deliver. Our job as the leader is to make sure when they promise that, they have the ability to deliver it. Now, if you have a choice, deliver result or die, which would you choose? Huh? Deliver result or die? Which one do you choose? So the brain, the human brain, is not that we cannot. It's just our brain chooses based on one or two bases. Either we do it because of the pleasure or we don't do it because of the pain. So if I need anybody to do anything, I just need to either decide to make it painful enough or pleasurable enough. And people will decide very quickly. How many of you here smoke? Please put up your hands. Smokers. Liars. Ada? Ada ke tak ada? Huh? Aside from you. You know you're gonna die. You know it's bad for you, correct or not? But you still do it because the pleasure is so great. When do you stop doing it? When do smokers stop smoking? The moment they get diagnosed with cancer, they're going to die. Now the fear of death overcomes the pleasure of smoking. That's as easy as it is. So for y'all who are not studying hard enough, right, it's because the pleasure of procrastination is far greater than the pain of studying. It's as simple as that. I hope I've answered your question somewhat. Yeah? Alright, thank you.
Assalamualaikum and good afternoon or evening. So my name is Nur Bashira. I'm a first year student of chemical engineering degree. And my question, since you mentioned about the correlation between leadership and adab or manners, I would like to know from your point of view of Adolf Hitler's leadership, because when you define adab as the right thing to do, which came from wisdom, so was Hitler himself, what he did, is it true? Is it the right thing to do that? And then eventually he managed to lead a group of people to do such. So, thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. That's a very good question. So what we've got to be careful is, especially today, right? Everybody's talking leadership. And the reason I put that up is because it is very easy for leaders to take people to go one way or the other way. Correct or not? That's why we say, if you're going to be, the definition we want to use in here for leader is one who can build a just society. Because there are many people, Trump is a leader. He is democratic. The people of America freely and voluntarily chose him. Correct or not? Okay? So if you say, I'm going to be leader, even if it's over 2 people, just remember to be a just leader. Now we can explore what just means, etc., but we don't have time for that. But just remember that bit. And because you all are young, and this is the same advice which I give to my kids, the moment you are about to do something which you're not prepared to tell your parents, take it for granted what you're doing is probably wrong and you shouldn't be doing it. As simple as that. Okay? Have I answered your question? Yes. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, next question.
Okay, good evening, sir. My name is Aishu and I'm a biomedical science student. Okay, so sir has mentioned that in order to be a leader, you have to make decisions regardless whether it's right or wrong. So my question is, in a situation where this leader is unable to make decisions, are there ways or tips to follow for the person to make decisions? Thank you.
So, in life, very good question. We are confronted with 3 states. The first state is certainty. In a situation of certainty, it's very easy to make decisions because you know what's going to happen. Okay? In the middle state, after certainty, is what? uncertainty. Oh my God. Okay? In uncertainty, you make decisions based on probability of outcome. Okay? So it's also not that difficult. Right? The one to be careful is the third state. The third state is called ambiguity. In the state of ambiguity, you cannot even put a probability of the outcome. In that state, the best remedy is to not make a decision and let time pass. This is why temperance and patience starts to come in. And as time passes and things change, that ambiguity will become into uncertainty. You see now? In uncertainty, once you can attach your probabilities, then you can start to going back to make decisions. Now, right now, all of this may sound very abstract to you. It may sound very abstract. But in your mind, can you see, you know, what are situations where decisions are very certain? A lot of them, correct or not? You know what the outcome. Why do people go and eat at McDonald's? Because you want the certainty of the taste. Any surprises going to McDonald's? No, isn't it? Because you know there's a certainty. You go to a new restaurant, never tried it before. How do you decide, go in or don't go in? Duit tak banyak. YK students a lot of money lah, but you know, most people don't have a lot of money. But you put some probability of it. But when you do not know what the outcome is going to be, the rule is very simple: patience. Okay? Does that help?
Any more questions? I think everyone's tired.
I'm sorry if I tired you. Just let me do one last bit.
Of course.
Okay? My kids are 20 and 18 years old. I tell them this, always this simple guideline. Stay away from harm. Stray away from harm. Run away from haram. The difference between harm and haram is only one more A. Yes or not? Okay? So that is my closing advice to you all as young kids. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for your time and all the pearls of wisdom you've shared with us.
Hi and Assalamu alaikum. I hope everyone is still present with us for this last session. So I'm Fatin and I'm pleasured to introduce both of our two distinguished alumni today with us. First is Dipti Krishnan Kumar. She's our YK alumni from King's College London. Dipti is a lawyer by training who advocates the empowerment of underprivileged communities and is particularly involved in issues pertaining to education equity. She is a Khazanah Scholar alumna who reads law at King's College London and was a top graduate in international financial laws at King's. Currently, she serves as the CEO of MCII, an NGO that promotes collective synergies across multiple stakeholders as a sustainable method of impactful change within the education landscape. MCII works on shifting the needle in literacy and career aspirations in the client area and achieve policy change at the same time. As an advisor to Queen Elizabeth II and the royal family, she advises on social impact investment across Commonwealth countries and serves on a panel to develop the Queen's Young Leader Program. She is also a United Nations Youth Representative and led the UN Changemakers in Geneva, a movement which includes young people in policy making. Passionate about education and accessibility, Dipti was the founder and project manager of a social enterprise project in Nepal, which rehabilitates drug users and educates and feeds homeless children. The second one with us today is Noor Azlina Abdul Aziz, who graduated from Harvard University. Noor was a researcher at the MIT and Harvard. While at Harvard, Noor taught 3 graduate courses on entrepreneurship, global education policy, and human development as a teaching fellow. In her work at Harvard's program on equity, quality, and leadership in education, she helped coach over 120 UNICEF education chiefs and officers on charge management and strategic implementation. Due to her accomplishments, she was awarded the prestigious Education Pioneers Fellowship in 2014. After 13 years in the US, she returned to Malaysia to become the CEO of Women's Innovation and Platform under the Prime Minister's office and help lead and launch the Malaysian Collective Impact Initiative. Prior to that, she works as an operations manager and community organizer at 2 Boston-based grassroots nonprofits, which she helped turn around and scale. Most recently, Noor was the country manager for Ashoka Malaysia and Singapore, where she helped establish the global nonprofit in the region by developing partnerships, exploring nonprofits across Asia, and electing Ashoka Fellows. She graduated from Harvard with a master's in international education policy, focused on entrepreneurship, and from Carnegie Mellon with a bachelor's degree in biomedical engineering, civil engineering, and psychology. And this is going to be quite a chill session, so I'm going to sit with them and ask a few questions. All right, so as we can see from their impressive background, the first question I will direct to Ms. Noor. So what drives you to choose your career, and why do you not choose the normal career path, as in to climb up the ladder in the corporate world? Why education from engineering?
So corporate world is a normal and natural route. Is that what we believe in now? So hi everyone. I wanted to thank Yayasan Khazanah for inviting me. This is quite an honor. I didn't realize there's so many people. And thank you all for staying to the end. I saw the schedule and it's quite a long schedule. I'm quite happy that most of you are awake still, so that's always a good thing. So yeah, that was a long introduction. I think the usual route of people staying in one discipline, right? So many of you I know are still either in foundation, I know some of you are in university, some even PhD students. Can the PhD students raise their hands? So I know where to watch out for. Okay, so a few of you. So the reason I switched is not, I think, quite an anomaly. I think it's just a natural progression. I started off in engineering for my undergrad, went to the US for my undergrad 4 years, and I did a lot of courses, and whatever courses fit into a major, that's why it came into psychology and all these things. When you're in college, it's not so much a feel, right? It's more of the skills you develop. So I know there's a lot of engineering students in the crowd, and you'll know that in engineering, you'll learn about designing solutions within constraints, right? You have constraints, and you're trying to figure out what's the most optimized way to produce a result, or produce efficiency, or produce something. That skill is transferable across disciplines, right? Whether you're in education trying to do education reform or redesign, you have constraints. You have monetary constraints, you have political support constraints, right? So those skills are transferable. So just because you see in a bio, in a resume, you see, oh, it's a different field change from education to science, to genetics, to so-called nonprofit or the social work. What you're doing at the end of the day is to help improve society, and you have transferable skills across the gamut. So the way I see what I'm doing now in education is actually social engineering. It's actually designing a better society. It just has this thread of education, but it's still doing what I've learned even from freshman day one, right? So as you know, the world is changing, and these buckets or these brackets of your field, whether whatever your degree in bachelor in science in medicine or bachelor in science in law or whatever, right? Those are slowly going to disappear. The world is changing really fast. You will, maybe back in your parents' days, if your parent was like my parent, right? They were a lecturer in university. They were a lecturer throughout. 30, 40 years, they were lecturers. But as you know now, maybe you have older siblings. Your siblings changed. How many of you have a sibling that changed a field? Can you raise your hand? Changed a field, like maybe they were in banking and then they switched to something different. Can you raise your hand? Not as many as I thought, maybe in Malaysia, maybe less. But the world is changing to a world where you will naturally change jobs, sometimes even every 2 to 3 years, and you will change fields, and that will be more normal. So I don't consider my resume particularly stark different. It's just labels, I would say, just labels. Your question about why, I think, is answered. Did I miss any other thing? Good. Why education? So when I felt like I wanted to give back to society, and this was a decision made about 5 years ago, no, more than that, about 8 years ago, you go out into the world and you wonder, how can you best make a contribution to society? And I felt at the end of the day, the buck stops with people, right? If you really want to grow a society, you have to have people running that show. And as much technology as you push into the system, as much money, as much other resources, nothing compares to human resources, to developing humans in any system to make that change, to make growth. And I think YK is a testament to this, investing in all of you, right? Putting a lot of money into all of you, because they recognize that at the end of the day, if you really want to change society, you have to have high caliber, high quality people, right? And what better way to do that than through education? And this can mean you invest in people in schools, but it can also mean you invest in adults, right? Adults typically, if you want to grow, a lot of people talk about growth and development, but sometimes adults need to heal, right? Healing has to happen before growth, right? And if you're an adult, you have a lot of experience in your life, some of them good, some of them bad. So then you have to heal and grow. So all these things fall under the gamut of education or human development, my passion, right? It was always there. If you notice, I had psychology. I say it was there from day one, that I've always wanted to work with people. So that's why I shifted into education.
Hi everyone, thank you for having me here and also for being attentive to our session today. Thank you, Fatin, for the nice introduction. So I'm so pleased to be beside you today, to be sharing this. She actually, I just found out 2 minutes ago that she launched the NGO that I'm now running a few years ago. So, I mean, what a nice coincidence, isn't it? With regards to that question, I think really wanted to add on and resonate with what Noor said earlier, that with regards to Industrial Revolution 4.0, and economic students here will understand, division of labor, over time, societies become a lot more specialized. So if we look back at people who first started working, or the first form of barter or trade between human beings, it was due to a necessity. It's because human beings needed certain things to live. And that has also, now developed into really complex industries everywhere. So actually, everyone everywhere in their own individual roles, based on their specific skills, experiences, and passions, you are contributing to society in your own way, whether it's being in a corporate firm, whether it's being in an NGO, or working in the public sector. We need to start perceiving ourselves as active social players in every role that we take. So don't confine yourselves to being corporate or non-corporate or corporate, public, and NGO. At the end of the day, think about how within your role you are a social player and how you can contribute to society with what you have. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. And also about education, just also to add on to that, why did I go into education? So my background is law. I studied law, both for undergrad and masters. And a lot of people are like, even after your masters, I mean, education, for similar reasons, and mine, I learned it from my personal experience, I felt like education really changed my life and provided me the exposure and allowed me to meet people and interact with people out there who were so interested in learning and growth for the sake of the world, not just for themselves. And I really think that education really helps us to trust ourselves more and find ourselves, and that is the key to, I think, one of your later questions on how are you an empowered person. But that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Deepti and Noor. So, continuing to what you just said, how do people develop a sense of empowerment, and what are the characteristics of an empowered person? And do we really need an empowered person in a society?
So she just said I have to define empowered. Now, how I define empowered, we all can define empowered in different ways, because there are different ways in which we utilize our skills and different ways in which we feel empowered. But how I would say I'm empowered is when I feel totally confident with my tools, my skills, my person, who I am, and I'm able to handle situations in daily life with an objective worldview, allowing myself to still be emotional or angry or upset or happy, but taking life day to day and knowing our objective roles in life. And when you do that, the sense of ego, the sense of like, I'm doing this, you're doing that, all of that sort of just fades away, and you start to see things with a more clear perspective. So I know I'm giving quite a vague answer. It's because I believe that everyone on your own defines how you feel empowered. But if you know who you are, you're confident with yourself, and you're kind to other people, and you constantly strive to learn, grow, and be better, I think those are what defines an empowered person.
Right, so I would define empowered as someone who is truly self-aware, so very similar to what you said, that you know what your unique strengths are as well as your weakness at any point of time. So where you are right now, you can take a snapshot of yourself right now. Do you really know what is your unique strengths? And these strengths don't mean like degrees or, you know, things that are on paper. These strengths could mean like I'm a good listener, because all my friends, if they have problems, they come to me because they know I won't judge them, for instance. That's a strength, that's a unique strength. Being a powerful listener is one of the rare soft skill traits in the world today. So that's a strength. Another strength is being able to see the big picture and the ability to zone down to details at the same time. That's a unique skill, and not everyone can master both. Typically people have one. They talk, you know, up there, you know, ivory tower, or they're so focused on the ground that they can't see the big picture. They miss the forest for the trees, right? So to be able to balance both is a strength. That's an example of a strength. So again, those things sometimes don't appear on paper, but they're unique strengths of yours. And more importantly, do you know your weaknesses, right? Where is the opportunity to growth? Where's the space for growth that you have? Really be honest, right? Most of the time, these are the things that make you insecure. And so sometimes you bury it deep inside you, right? You know, maybe it could be a language deficient. I'm not so good in a certain language. Or it could be that, you know, I get jealous of people very quickly. Or I don't work well with authority, right? If someone starts bossing me around, that's it, I'm out. Like you can't really focus or, you know, give your ear to someone who you think is a jerk, right? Maybe it's a weakness, the ability to work with all kinds of people, right? So being really honest with your skills, being really honest with what your strengths and weaknesses are, to me makes you an empowered person, because you're very self-aware, right? You're honest and you're self-aware. And being able to know that will help you grow, right? Will help you channel yourself in the right kind of places, at the right time, the right kind of jobs, because you know that this is who I am, this is my personality type, and I can find the job that I know fits this well. You don't go for jobs that, you know, are like the societal expectations to be great jobs, but you tune into a job that's a perfect match to your strengths and weakness, right? Does this resonate with any of you? Does this make sense? I hope this is not missing you. But you know, so you don't just say, okay, everyone wants to become a doctor, or everyone wants to become an engineer, or everyone wants to become an investment banker, and that's where I should go, because that's what society says is where the money is, or whatever it is. But you can really be aware of where you are, because if you get into a position or in a job that is a good fit for you, guess what happens? Synergy, right? Empowerment, right? It's a good fit, things flow. I don't know if any of you read the book Flow. Things flow, you know, the jazz starts. And I think that's when you're most empowered to make not just a change in society, but make yourself feel like you're making a change, right? That's important. I want to share a quote by Rumi. Anyone who's on WhatsApp will see that this is my little sub note under my name, but you saw it. You know, Rumi, he's a poet, a Persian poet, 12th century. He said that I was clever and I wanted to change the world, but today I am wise and I'm changing myself, right? And that to me is an example of an empowered person, because they know how to look at themselves, right? And not first, look at yourself first before so-called you want to change the world.
Thank you. That's a very great takeout that we can take today. To feel empowered is to firstly self-actualize ourselves and analyze our strengths and weaknesses. So the next question is for Dipti. Taking into consideration Malaysia's demography and seeing how you posted that you went from school to school for MCII, how do you ensure that these things are sustained and it's not a one-off movement?
Sustainability. We all hear this word all the time in conferences. Believe me, I hear it in my nightmares. Because I work in an NGO, and I'm sure same with you, Noor. So it's always a talk of how do you make things sustainable. Now, I'm going to talk about the particular NGO and the education approaches, but you can think about sustainability in your own life and in the different things you do. Try to apply that. So sustainability, we do it through 3 different ways. Number 1 is sustainability of the NGO itself. So we strategize on funding, on partnerships with governments or with local NGOs. And we build really strong relationships with different bodies within the government. So within MOE, there is KPM, BPSH, KPMM, JPN. I can go on and on, but you have to have relationships with all of them so that they see the whole picture of what we're doing, number 1. That's sustainability of the NGO itself. Number 2 is sustainability of the impact on the ground where we are at. For that, we talk about community engagement. So starting to get the community around the rural schools, which are parents, community, ketua kampung, the religious leaders from nearby, to first come in and understand what we do, get them engaged, and then on the 3rd level will be them actually owning and running literacy programs. I just want to point out here, since all of you are Khazanah scholars or some other scholars as well, our literacy levels in Malaysia are extremely low, and we are all a very privileged bunch. At our 15-year-olds in Malaysia, 53% of them do not have functional literacy. Functional literacy, they cannot function on English or even BM. So that is something that all of us will have to think about regularly, because this affects all of us in society as well. So sustainability for us, we talk about literacy a lot, we talk about community engagement. Now the 3rd thing we do to ensure sustainability of our work is policy engagements. So we need to come up with solutions, but it has to go to the people who actually can implement those solutions. But we cannot approach them like, oh, you know, we know everything, this is what you need to do. No, it needs to be data-driven, evidenced with our on-the-ground work, research that shows what the background is and how to support this. I can go a bit deeper. Talking about literacy in Malaysia, especially with the Ministry of Education, is not a very light issue that they take. They actually look at it very seriously, and it can be quite a contentious issue because data is different from in the government and independent parties. So how do we ensure that our policy recommendations are also seen positively? We don't approach them in a way where we shoot them down. We say, look, there's this problem. We respect that you have some data, we have some tool, we need to work together. So this is how we address sustainability in 3 different ways.
Sustainability. Yeah, it's such an overused word. Every conference speaks about sustainability. How can I give a twist or a different angle to this? Maybe I'll speak about Ashoka. So I'll share a bit about my work with Ashoka. Who's here has heard of Ashoka? No one says so. Okay, so Ashoka is just a global organization. What it does is that it explores different nonprofits, or not just nonprofits, social investors, anyone who's making a social change in society. And the ones who do that well, and I'll share what well means in a bit, you get inducted into a global fellowship called Ashoka Fellows. So it's kind of like the YK of the world for social entrepreneurship, if that makes sense. So YK is like a very prestigious scholarship in Malaysia. Now think about a prestigious fellowship in social entrepreneurship, and that's Ashoka. So I was bummed when I first came back to Malaysia. I said like, okay, there's 100 plus or 300 Ashoka Fellows from Indonesia. There's hundreds of Ashoka Fellows in Thailand and Philippines. Where there's not one Ashoka Fellow from Malaysia. No one has heard of Ashoka, right? And it's like to me, like ultimate, recognition for a social entrepreneur. And so I had a friend back in school in Boston who was an Ashoka Fellow from Brazil. She was actually the daughter of the former president of Brazil, who kind of like left investment or left corporate world and opened an education NGO as well. So she was raving about her experience with Ashoka, and then I learned that they were thinking of starting Ashoka Malaysia and Singapore. And so I was like, you gotta come, take me, I'll help you build a platform in Malaysia. And so just last year, we elected our first 2 Ashoka Fellows. This is Johnson Uy from, I forget his organization, but he builds homes for rural areas. Remind me what? Or Epic, yeah, he now starts Epic Collective. From Sabah, we have another fellow who is from Sabah Smiles. I can't remember the name of the organization. But yeah, so we have 2 now, Ashoka Fellows, finally on the map. But the point that I want to say about sustainability is this. There are millions of nonprofits started every year. So this advice you didn't expect from me, but I'll tell you right now, do not start a nonprofit. Do not start a nonprofit, especially don't start it when you're young. The reason I say this is because, number one, there's so many nonprofits, and when you're a nonprofit, the way for you to get income is through grants, right, or donations, right? And that is not a sustainable way of making income. There's no revenue stream. And if you think about it, because in the US there's like millions of nonprofits, and there's only how many foundations, right, out in the world? So you're talking about very scarce resources that goes into grants. And applying for grants, I don't know if you know what this means, but basically you send in an application begging for money from foundations or corporate organizations asking for money and trying to prove that, hey, look, I am doing incredible work and I'm changing society, please give me money. But then they have all these other nonprofits who are asking money as well, right? So if you can think about it, it's trickle of money that goes through nonprofits. And if you think you're going to change the world, the reason why I say don't start a nonprofit is because I would suggest that you scour all the nonprofits, find the best one, and join them. I would say at this point there's not really a need, especially when you're young. It's better to join a more established nonprofit who's doing the work, maybe not exactly what you want to do, but at least it's close enough for you to understand the sector a little more. And then really, if it happens, you notice like once you join a nonprofit, then you understand the sector better. And if you see there's a gap, somewhere in the industry, like for instance, if you're in education, you notice there's a gap in literacy, like what Dipti is doing, then you can consider starting a nonprofit. But I'll tell you now that I would not encourage anyone in this room to start a nonprofit, because I would say join a nonprofit that's already there, and then you're under the auspices of a nonprofit. At least you'll have an income. A lot of nonprofits, people who start a nonprofit, you don't get paid for a year or even 2 years, because you need to get the team running, right? You need to get the organization up. And just ask anyone how many nonprofits close shop, right? Because they can't be sustainable. There's no revenue stream, grants dry out. So if you want to make a social impact, my message is make sure you're financially sustainable. And that's very hard to do, especially in Malaysia, because if you think of global money, it's great because our currency is quite smaller than a lot of major countries, but normally when people want to give money internationally, they'll think of Indonesia, they'll think of Yemen. Malaysia's not quite considered like very poor. There are some parts that are really poor in Malaysia, in Sabah, but yeah, the money both locally and globally is not as good, especially with so many wars in the world right now. So if you want to if you want to make a social impact, join a nonprofit so that you have some experience, and then find a gap. Financial sustainability. One other thing, just one last note about sustainability is this. A lot of people want to help others, right? So you see people are hungry, and then you start up a soup kitchen, for instance. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because someone who's hungry is now fed. That's good. But there is this thing called dependency, right? So when you help someone, you don't want that person to suddenly depend on you, right? Because if you keep feeding someone, they'll keep coming back to you. And so you're actually depriving them for a chance to make themselves self-sustainable, right? You don't want them to continuously depend on you forever. So that's another thing to say about education, because you've heard the saying before. You give a man a fish, what happens? Who knows this quote? What's that? He eats for a day, and if you what? If you teach them how to fish, then it's better outcomes, right? So that means they're no longer dependent on you to keep giving them fish. So that's another thing to think about in terms of sustainability. So just to wrap up, you always want a revenue stream for any nonprofit. You don't want to be dependent on someone else to give you money. And then secondly, think about if you want to do good, to make sure the person or the recipient not dependent on you, but are able to stand on their 2 feet.
Thank you to both Noor and Dipti. We can see that there are various ways that we can contribute back to society, and not just by starting an NGO, since we're not financially stable as of yet. So let's take this to another dimension. So Dipti, since you're the CEO of MCII, have you ever had a misogynistic experience, especially dealing with, meeting the higher ups in government? So can you share with us?
It's a bit of a contentious issue, I must say, because I was embroiled in a recent incident. I will share on it, but that's not going to be my main focus. I actually have a message behind what I want to say. So I work closely with different bodies within MOE, and one of the bodies, JPN Selangor, I went there a few months ago, and I was wearing a knee-length dress with a black sweater, and I was kicked out of the building for doing that. And the NGO that I actually work for actually brings millions every year to support JPN's work. So I was frustrated. They asked me to leave the premises, go outside. I can't come back in until I am fully covered. Managed to get a skirt, went back in, I said, I'm going to go in and make sure that whatever comes out from my mouth makes them see that the value in here is a lot more than the value here. So I did that, took a photo of myself, and I sent it to my funders, my board of directors, and I sent it to some friends and family on private WhatsApp. And the next day, I was all over the internet. Someone had sent my photo to the Star called me, they wanted to put it in the Star, and it started spreading on fake accounts on Facebook with different words, addressing the minister, things that I had not said. So, long story short, it was a case of, I would say, firstly, we talk about the outfit incident. I think if it's a bit more of a deeper level, right? It's beyond misogyny, it's also cultural. We need to, as a society, understand and reflect on what defines us and whether that particular incident should have happened or not. So that's a deeper conversation to have. But in terms of what happened after that, of course, a lot other issues like cyber harassment and things like that, which you had a session earlier today. Be careful what you put on social media. Yeah, definitely be careful. And also be careful what you share with your friends, because even that can go everywhere and it can really be twisted way out of control. So that's also what I wanted to share. But actually, if I wanted to talk a bit deeper, if we talk about direct situations that I face at work, it is more related to ageism. Yeah, I don't think that it comes from a negative place, because I understand that when you're younger, you don't have as much experience and probably wisdom as people who have spent more years on this earth, right? But once or twice when I went to some schools, and I'm about to go on stage, and they were like, okay, we'd like to call Dipti Kumar from MCII to give to speak. And I stand up, and the person on stage just goes, oh my God, you're so young. Can you imagine that? She's so young. So I had faced that a few times, which of course was a bit funny as well. But on a deeper level, when you speak to people on getting funding, on partnerships within the government or externally, that you just need to make sure you prove yourself. So I work very hard to ensure everything I say adds value. I have to be very strategic with what I say, and I have to always take a step back before I respond. I think, so that's how you would address situations like that. Take a step back. Don't be personal with the person who made a statement. Think about where it has come from and why this person, has said a certain thing, and then respond. On a deeper level, we talk about misogyny. I've not experienced direct misogyny here. In Malaysia, actually, I experienced it more in London and at the UN in Switzerland. So direct misogyny is not very clear here, but if you look at maybe on a more institutionalized level, maybe you can share more. I've not experienced much, except you can tell that in meetings, when I compare myself to peers who are similar ages or in similar roles, who are male and I'm female, I find that I actually have to talk a lot more sense, bring so much more value to the table, and really work harder to prove myself. So that does happen, but don't let this be something that makes you a hateful person. Think about what happens around us in society and how you can navigate that. and really try to address these sort of things in very constructive ways.
So Dipti just raised the bar and got real. So I'm gonna try to follow suit with her. Yeah, so the ageism is true. I'll say that. You know, I'm much older than Dipti. I don't look it. I just had a baby. I'll let you know that. But I myself experienced ageism, so I can't imagine what you went through, being a 20-something. I'm in my 30s now. Ageism is real. Do you know that word? Does everyone know what ageism means? It means you're discriminated because you're young or you're old. So you're discriminated because of your age. So people don't look at your capacity to deliver, but they look at, oh, you're too young. And then they just kind of like make a judgment about you and what you're capable of. That's what ageism is. Some people experience ageism for being too young, some people experience ageism for being too old, and both are a form of discrimination. So I experienced that as well. That's one thing that I was surprised after coming back from the US. So I was there for 13 years, so I got to escape the ageism of being young, too young, because I spent most of my 20s in the States. But when I first came back, I was offered this job as a CEO of the Women's Innovation Center. And I'll tell you, a day doesn't go by that someone says, oh, you're so young. And they put a smile on your face, smile, but it's kind of a little bit, I don't know what the word is. It makes you a little uncomfortable, in other words, right? So how I can relate this to an advice is this, because we're speaking from the social sector. I think it's real, I think it exists, and so I would encourage all of you, before, if you're considering doing something for society, make sure you are credible, right? So sometimes if you're just finished college, sometimes that's not the most credible place to immediately jump and start something, right? So I would actually encourage you to, this is tough, but I would encourage you to explore other sectors first. Whether it's engineering or banking or law, build some credibility, do really well. Whether it's a big name company or something, something that add credibility to yourself, or maybe get a degree from a reputable organization with a reputable degree. Build credibility first before you jump in, because especially when you're young, there is this thing where I think people don't take you seriously until your 40s. That's just speaking truth. Right? If you're in your 30s, sometimes people are like, oh, you're still too young. In Malaysia, I think 40s is a good place to be credible. So if you have age against you, when you're 20s, you're a fresh grad, I think you have, and I'm following Dipti here, being real, right? I'm not necessarily saying what I'm supposed to say. I'm just being real. I think it's worth considering building credibility first. And do people know what credibility means? Right? People are clear about that. Like whether it's something, make a bang out there first and then jump into the social sector and make an impact if that's what you want to do. The reason being is because the social sector is still relatively new in Malaysia. You can count on your hands the number of non-profits or social organizations that have a working budget of 500,000. And 500,000 ringgit is not a lot, by the way. If you want the more established organizations, I think at least you need like 2 million. So, you have organizations that are run by 3 people, for instance. You don't even have a dedicated fund manager. You don't have a dedicated, it's very small, very, very small organization. So if you want to build a good team, you want to attract good people to come to your organization, you have to be a magnet yourself. So if you don't have credibility, people may not want to join your team because, like, who am I working with? Oh, I don't know who this person is. Not very credible. Doesn't have a really outstanding background, right? So to get a good team yourself, you have to be a magnet, and that's why I'm being real. Again, I'm following Dipti's great lead here. It's very tough to be in the social sector if you're not credible. It's very tough to build a team. What was the question? Misogynistic. So I spoke about ageism instead. I've never experienced, just like Dipti, I think that's irrelevant. I also felt more misogynist microaggressions, I'll call them, in the States than in Malaysia. I think we're all berbudi bahasa, sopan santun is the general rule in Malaysia, and for that, I'm very grateful that I've never experienced misogyny in Malaysia. Alhamdulillah.
All right, thank you. I think I've asked enough questions to both of them, so I now open the floor for Q&A questions from all of you.
I see a number of you are getting a bit distracted. I know it's the end of the day, but try to utilize the next 5 minutes to ask whatever you want to ask. And those handphones are going to be there forever, but this opportunity is not. So pay attention, ask questions, okay?
Hello, my name is Zechi. I'm a first-year law student from University of Malaya. So my question is directed to Ms. Noor. You spoke about feeling empowered and about self-empowerment. So I'm sure everyone in this room, at some point you will feel less empowered, or maybe you will start to doubt yourself. So what do you tell yourself, or what do you do to keep yourself moving forward and find a purpose in what you're doing? Thank you.
Very good question. So I come from a human development background, so I'm going to share a little bit of theory, so bear with me. Okay, so very quickly. So a lot of people think that you develop as a child, as a teenager, and then you become an adult, and then you stop growing, right? Adulthood, whether you're 20, 30, 40, you're adulthood, you've reached, full development, and that's not true. So I worked with a professor back at Harvard. He has done 30 years of research, and he actually showed that even as adults, you develop, right? So he describes it as the 5 minds of development. You've all heard someone say, it's like, why does that woman who's 40 or 50 still act like a teenager? Who's heard of the saying, or like something about her that she still feels like a teenager, she hasn't really grown? Who's heard of or seen or have experienced this? Raise your hand. Like they haven't quite matured yet, they're kind of like still like teenage. Okay, so it's good. It's like quite a big kind of number. So I'll just skip the first 2, I'll just jump to the third mind. So the third stage of growth as an adult is where you care a lot about what people think of you, right? So this is called the socialized mind. So you're very loyal to whatever group you're in. So if you say, I'm in the group of engineers, you're very like loyal to that group. You're very loyal to your family. You don't raise your voice, you don't like confrontation, you're very conforming, right? Very conforming, don't rock the boat, right? So that's third stage. The fourth stage is when a crisis happens. A crisis happens, like you've been following what everyone says, you've been trying to please everyone, but that no longer works. Whatever crisis it is, you follow it and suddenly you hit the dead end or something and you turn out, that advice was bad. And so you start breaking out of the mold. You start doing something radical. You start, okay, no more of this, I'm going to switch careers. I'm going to do something different. I'm no longer going to just follow what everyone else does. I'm going to break out, right? I'll get to your question, your answer, bear with me. And this is called the self-authoring mind. So you'll see people who are activists, they no longer want to say everything's okay. They're like, this is not right, and I'm going to raise my voice and speak truth, right? So they break out of the mold. You'll see the career changers, the activists, these are people who kind of break out from conformity, right? And then the last stage, and this is where you're not kind of like following people. You're not very angry and very upset and radical. You're kind of in the middle. Things are not black and white. You appreciate gray. You appreciate gray, and you kind of like tone down a bit. So if you're radical, you've heard the song by Frank Sinatra, like, I'll do it my way, right? I'll do it my way. So that's when a crisis hits and they move from the third stage to the fourth stage. And then the fifth stage is when people say, like, you know what, money doesn't matter anymore. For the longest time I didn't have money, and then I really wanted to get money. I was so gung-ho about, reaching the echelons of the corporate ladder. Very gung-ho, very, very angsty and, passionate. And then after a while, maybe your mother gets sick. And then you realize, like, oh, you know what? Money is not, at the end of the day, is what matters. At the end of the day, family, relationships is what matters, and you kind of tone down a bit, right? This is just an example. So an answer to your question is this. Find a purpose and find it quick, right? At the end of the day, and maybe not too many of you can relate because most of you are young, just like I am, meaning is at the end of the day what matters. A meaningful life. What that meaning means to you, what is meaningful to you is what will motivate you no matter what. When you are feeling down and when you're feeling hopeless or things don't go your way, your boss that you've tried to please for so long suddenly like hits back at you or treats you poorly and you just don't know where you're heading next, you're thinking of whether I should quit or not. Ask yourself, is what you're doing meaningful to you, right? a lot of people go through meaningless meetings day in, day out. They go into these corporate jobs and they're like, oh, I'm going to make a change. I'm going to, improve systems. I'm going to, figure out a way to, break this financial system that's corrupting the world with its debt economy, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, you're spending most of your time in meetings, filling out forms, doing processes. And, is that meaningful to you, right? At the end of the day, you have to think, like, what I'm doing with my life, which is a very finite resource. So all you engineers know this, scarcity. You have a constraint. Your time is a constraint. You don't have that much time in this world. Is that really what's meaningful to you? If it's meaningful, then you will find a way to push yourself to, if it's meaningful, all the other things don't matter. You can find a way through. The question is if it's not, right? And I ask you all the time, wherever you are, in whatever job, is what you're doing meaningful enough to you that this is worth it, right? And I think that'll be a good guiding light.
Right, thank you very much, Noor. So we have a very, very, very short time left. We're just going to get like 4 questions. Is it okay? 4 questions straight away. Give it rapid fire questions. I have one Burhan. I have one over here. All right, how about this? The first 4 to come up front. That's the questions that we're going to ask. Is that okay? All right, the first 4 to come up front. Come.
All right. I'm just going to ask straight. So relating to both of you guys, relating to...
Yeah, it's okay.
Thought we want to save time.
All right. Ask 4 questions straight away. Direct to which of the speakers want to ask. And then
Okay. For the both of you guys, I'm sorry if I'm repeating what you've said, but I just want to know, based on your personal experiences, how did you bring about change in an already established system?
So I'll just answer that first. Number 1, so if I'm going to keep this as rapid fire as Ashraf wants it to be, sorry, I think you need to turn the mic that way. So number 1, I would say don't fight the system, work through the system. And this has come from a lot of fighting and a lot of backlash and getting a lot of eye bags in the process. Always work through the system. Find the loopholes, number 1. Number 2, don't ever be personal. There'll be people on the other side, on your side, or around you. Don't be personal. Know that there's a reason and there's somewhere where this has come from. Understand the overall system and work through it. Number 2. And number 3, don't focus on changing the world. Focus on changing yourself and the space around you by living through example. These are the 3 things I would say to summarize.
I want to ask both of you. I also working on NGO, which move around the Selangor. And education start at home. So how can an NGO want to educate at home? So I want to give the tips or opinion.
I agree with that. I think primary, caregivers should be the main source of education. The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. How can I say this? I would, again, you know me, I would say don't start an NGO. Find an organization that does help parents help their children, educate their children. There's already a lot of organizations that even help single moms, for instance. There's I don't know if you know of Jaya One, we're in PGA, there's a secondhand store downstairs that is an income revenue generator for single parents, right? So these are women who are raising 2 or 3 or 4 children on their own. They could use help, right, to help their children grow. So you become an assistant to the parents to help their children. I would say that's the best bet. Yeah. Victor, you want to add?
So just to add, in terms of specifically at the NGO that I work at, what we do is our focus is literacy and career aspirations, but we know that it starts at home, and we know that the parents actually don't have the tools and the skills to be able to provide that education. So what do we think about next? What can help these specific parents be better parents to their children? The first bigger worries is money, food, like electricity. Then comes, the hierarchy of needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So the first basic ones need to be there. And then you look at how can you equip them with better tools. So all the programs that go into our schools, we make it mandatory for them to have community engagement, parental engagement as a key component of their work. So let's just say you have, now if you're running an NGO, working in an NGO, and you have a partner coming in make it mandatory that all your partners have to, if they want to work in the school or here or there, they have to engage with the parents and the community for them to do their work.
Just one last thing to add. It's kind of a little off range. So research shows that one of the best things, there's a lot of things a parent can do for their child, but out of the many things a parent can do for their child, the one that research has shown to be the best bet is to have parents read to their child every night. Of all the things, whether it's not about investing in expensive private schools, it's not about, buying the best technology, all these things combined, they found the best thing that a parent can do for their child to have the best economic, social, developmental outcomes is the parent reading to their child every night. So if you can figure out a way, and some organizations already do this, so don't start NGO. Organizations already do this to help parents understand the importance of reading to their child every night. Because it's not just a part about reading the book and making them readers, it's also about the connection, attachment between a parent and child, the explaining to the child that, I honor you, I'm taking this time out to spend time with you. I value reading, I value education, I value imagination, I value creativity. There's so much packed in getting parents to read to their child every night. I hope all of you, when you become parents, read to your child every night. It's the biggest bang in the buck. If you're Muslim, you know that our Prophet said Iqra. So more emphasis on reading. It's a very important thing. And some of you who have parents who have read to you every night, you're just blessed. So say thanks to your parents when you get home. Give them a call. Inshallah.
All right, so my question is to both of you. Since you work very extensively in the education sector, what do you perceive as the most demanding needs to improve the education sector from the educator perspective, the student perspective, and the parents' perspective? Thank you.
I have an answer for this. It's what Dipti is doing right now. So the main thing about education systems is that there's a lot of stakeholders, right? You cannot change a system as gigantic as the education system without working together with different sectors, right? So what Dipti is doing is that she's working across the different sectors. So she's getting government to sit in with the corporate organizations, to sit in with the nonprofits on the ground who know the community best. And between these three, then you can actually make change in education, right? So know that you can't take on a giant like the education system working alone, as smart as you are, as a YK, intelligent, sophisticated, strategical, you can't do this alone. So what Dipti is doing is tremendous because she's getting everyone on the table to work with each other, and then together you can make a bang.
So that's the macro view, and thank you for that. But the also micro view, if you talk about students, number one, students need to be able to read. That is a big problem in Malaysia. Number one is reading, because reading is the first step into knowledge. So that's students. Parents, they need to be equipped with the right tools to understand what are the needs of the future for their students, because now they think that getting straight A's in SPM is more important than actually having the skills, but suddenly skills are becoming a lot more important. And from the third, on the space of the educator, they need to look at development of EQ. If I'm an educator, that's the number one thing I would look at. Teachers need to look at students and know how can we develop the EQ of each and every student. Because IQ doesn't change, but EQ can be changed through environment and practice.
I'll add one last thing. I mentioned this earlier. The one thing that you know is going to happen, the one thing that you know will never change is that change will happen. So the world becomes more and more, I don't know if you've seen these videos, Big Shift and all this, but the world is rapidly changing and it's going to get even faster. So I would say one of the most important skills, or whatever you want to define educated, is the ability to be adaptable, right? Adaptability. So you don't stick to one thing forever, and you don't invest in it. You're able to shift as the world changes. That is a very important skill, because all of you are in the 21st century, and knowing too much about one sector will actually make you trapped and stuck. You have to be adaptable. Good luck.
Okay. Hi. So my question is for Mrs. Noor. This is rather an extension to your previous answer about finding something meaningful to yourself. So how do you find something rather meaningful to you rather than what society already defined something meaningful? Thank you.
Has anyone seen this diagram? It went viral a few times. People translate in different languages, but in Japanese it's called ikigai. Has anyone seen this? Okay, So, yeah, the bunch of circles, there's 4 of them. Who remembers the 4 things? And then the ikigai is like the subset of all 4. Who remembers any of it? Name one of the 4. I might remember 3. I don't remember the 4th, so I need help. What's that? Passion. Okay, so find something that you love that is also what? That is also that you're good at. Good. Something you love and something you're good at. And then what are the other 2? What you can be paid for. Are you looking up on the computer? Okay, what's the 4th one? What the world needs, right? So that is like your purpose, your meaning. If you can find something that you love, that's also something that you're good at. That's also something that you can be paid for, and also something that the world needs, right? That's ikigai. It's a Japanese word, and then some people call it purpose. Some people call it, it's translated in different languages. But look it up. It's spelled I-K-I-G-A-I. So you have to spend some time being very honest with yourself to find what that is. You can't just find something that you're going to be paid for, right? You can't just fill one of the 4 brackets. You can't just find something that the world needs, but no one's going to pay for it, right? Because then how are you going to sustain yourself? How are you going to feed your family? Right? All of you are going to have families, inshallah. And so you can't change the rule if you don't even have food on your table, right? You're going to be begging for food. So you need to be paid. And then you have to be good at it. You can't just say, oh, I'm passionate about this, I want to do it. But then if someone throws you into the work, you give a half-baked outcome or half-baked product. So it's the 4, I'll repeat it again, something that you love, that's also something that you're good at, it's also something that the world needs, and something that you can be paid for. And that's ikigai.
It's a process.
It's a process.
So don't feel like I need to know exactly what I need to do right now. So all of you, if you don't know where you are, uncertainty is a good place to be. I know previously the speaker spoke about uncertainty. All of us go through uncertainty. Both of us have not been that sure about where we were younger. It's a process. Just trust your gut instinct, continue exploring, and self-reflection. Always reflect. I think that will guide you towards ikigai. So just to remind you that don't feel bad if you don't know what it is. Explore, and everyone has their own journey. Don't rush to match someone else's time.
Salam sejahtera, everybody. You need revolving chairs, because I'll be walking around the room and you want to revolve if you want to see me. So anyway, first of all, welcome everybody. Thank you for staying on for so long. It's been a long day. I always have this enviable task of re-motivating you before dinner, because it's a late evening. So welcome to all the YK scholars, and including the 4 from China. 4 kan from China. Where are the 4? Okay, these are our Chinese scholars. And then we've got from YTN, 5 orang. Who's the YTN? Is it 5 of you? Yeah, okay. Nak check attendance saja, because we have to report back to YTN whether you came or not. Malaysian Airports ada 4 orang. Dah balik dah. See? Take note lah. Dia dah balik dah. MBHB. Tadi Malaysian Airlines. Malaysian Airlines ada lagi pun dah balik. Malaysian Airports pun dah balik. Tabung Haji? Tabung Haji where? Alright, good. Project Ed. Okay, good. Project Ed. PNB? PNB ada? Okay, good. You're all here. And Tenaga Nasional. TNB. YTN. Okay. YK? Okay, cuba kira ada 130 tak lagi? I think there's 129, one went back already just now, kan? Okay. Anyway, we also have our scholars from Palestine, from Bangladesh, from Indonesia, and Thailand. Thailand ada tak ini? Ada. Welcome. So as you can see, we are quite a global organization. We have scholars in how many countries? How many countries do we have scholars in? UK, US, Australia, China, Malaysia, and Turkey. So how many is that? 6. Turkey, yeah, 6. So we have scholars in 6 countries. So quite a global organization like YKN, kan? So anyway, welcome everybody, to all of you, all the scholars from different countries, scholars from all the other GLCs. It's good to see you. I won't take up too much time this time around, because I think we are running short of time, and takut kang makanan habis, because it's buffet kan. So buffet others will also ni. So I hope you've enjoyed the day. You'll find that today's list of speakers is slightly different from the usual usual punya conference, because I think the only corporate people we had was from, of course, our own MD from Kazana, Dato' Syaril, and also the MDEC. The rest were quite interesting. They're different. Yusuf Hashim, I think, was very different. Just to be clear, no deferment after graduation to go for travels. In case some people are thinking of doing that. But do save money lah. That's what he's saying kan. And then he talks about honesty, integrity, dengan morality. Okay, so these are the things you need to pick up. So we had Pixie, which is also, I think, something quite different, and we had our 2 alumni, yeah, which are also quite different. So I hope it's actually to share with you that life is not just about corporate lah. Yeah, it's not just about corporate life. There's more than life than corporate life. You'll find that actually kita punya, how many competencies do we have? Okay, tenaga nasional tahu tak? Kita ada 8. Tak tahu kan? Kita ada 8. You ask your YK neighbours. The 8 actually originates from 2. It's actually an Islamic principle. In Islamic competency, dia ada 2. Dia panggil kuah dengan amanah. So these 2, which is important, actually we work on the 2, it became the 8. Kuah is actually your ability to do things. So your functional competency, whether you're an engineer, you're an accountant, whether you're an MD, you're a vice president, you need this. But very important as well is this bit on amanah. Okay? Amanah is, you talk about honesty, integrity, respect for people, morality. These are the other things that you must have. Yeah, the core you grab from your degree, mostly lah. Yeah, but that alone is not enough. You must also get the soft skills. So kalau the time you spend in university, if you focus only on academics, then I think you've wasted 4 or 5 years of your life. Yeah? You need to, of course. I mean, we always talk about second upper and CGPA of 3.5, which all of you will get, or higher. Kan? That one all we know, that's a given. Kan? That's a given. But it's also important that you spend the 4 or 5 years of your time in university to develop the other skills. The honesty and the integrity, we hope we have selected the right people. So far, I think we have selected the right people. But the other skills, the other 8 skills that you have, you can learn it whilst you're in the university. So we always say, join the clubs. Yeah, do more than just study. And I hope you're doing that. We meet all of you. I meet all of you at least once a year. I just met the Johor group Bila kita jumpa Johor? Last week kan? Yeah. So, you know, that's just to make sure that you're all doing the things that you should be doing. So yang penting tu is not just your academic, as I said. The academic is a given, but the rest of it. The rest of it, and you must, you know, the purpose. One of our competencies is purpose, kan? Driven by a greater reason for doing things, always strive for the greatest good. So benda-benda macam tu is important. Because if you don't have that, kalau tak pasang niat, for the Muslims tu, whenever we do something macam nak semayang, nak puasa, always ada niat. Ya? Kalau you puasa tak ada niat, maknanya kita lapar je lah. Kan? You just go hungry. Those that fast without niat, you'll go hungry. Those that pray without niat, you do exercise. Kan? So semua untuk dunia aja yang tu. So kita nak buat untuk akhirat sekali. So that if we pasang niat for the greater purpose, then you know you will do well. You know why you're doing this. You're not doing this just so that you can become rich and famous. You can become famous, but you don't have to become rich. It's okay to be poor and famous. It's nice to be rich and famous, of course, but it's okay to become poor and famous. So long as you help others. That's the purpose of a YK scholar. People who have got a bigger heart than they have, the heart is bigger than the size of their head. Itu yang penting. You must have your heart in the right place. I've always said that we give this through you to your community so that you may touch the lives of others in your community. And they, in turn, will touch others. So you create a ripple. Ingatlah, you create a ripple so that you will make this country great. I mean, we have had issues in the past. The government has changed. There is a new Malaysia. And we need to make, you know, whether new or whatever Malaysia we have, we need to make it work. We need to make it work. And you are our hope. And we have the... And this is the reason for me. This is the reason. These are my 2 grandchildren. When they grow up, you will be how old? 40? You will be standing here, not that I'm 40 lah. But you will be standing here. You will be the ones in parliament. You will be the ones up on stage talking to young people like you. Right? And you are going to decide the kind of country my 2 grandchildren will live in. So it's important for me. I have no more interest. This is actually my last 8 months in YK. Okay, as my contract expires. But I know I leave you in good hands. Because YK is an institution. We have got, you know, things are moving. Things will continue to move. We will continue to produce great leaders, inshallah. Yeah, but this is mine. This is my personal need to have all of you do well. Not just your second upper, first class and all that, but somebody who's prepared to go out and help. And when you see something wrong, you will raise your hands and say it's wrong. You will either stop it with your hands, ataupun second one with your mouth, ataupun lastly with your heart. Itulah selemah-lemahnya iman. Okay? So these are the sort of scholars I hope and I pray will come in 20 years, 30 years from now, or even earlier. So it's not just about being an MD, it's not about just being a GM, it's not just being a doctor, an engineer. It's about being a person, being a human being who does the right thing. Yeah, so that's the sort of people we hope we have developed. YK, as you know, as you speak to other scholars, is a very high-touch scholarship program. It's not just about giving you money, go and study and come back. It's not. We try to mold you. Sometimes we fail, which is, for me personally, is very sad. You know, we have people who don't honor their obligations. And I would dare to say these people are traitors to the country because this is money that is being paid for by the rakyat. It's not a loan. It is not a loan. It's money for you to go and develop yourself. So we have people that has done that, but fortunately not many. So it's very sad to see this. Obviously these people tak faham what YK is all about. They see it as an opportunity to study. YK is not an opportunity to study. YK is an opportunity for you to be developed as future leaders of this great country of ours. Okay, and as I speak with our Asian scholars as well, is for you to go back and serve your country as well, for the Palestinians, for the Bangladeshis, Indonesians, the Thais. Go back and serve. Service, as I said, doesn't mean just serving your bond. Service is beyond that. It's more than that. Okay? And once you're a YK scholar, you will always be a YK scholar. You carry with you the brand, the reputation of being associated with Khazanah, with Yayasan Khazanah. And that is a heavy responsibility. Because you must remember there will be others that come after you. There will be your juniors, people like my grandchildren. Hopefully, I hope they will also be YK scholars one day. But you know, people, I have seen also unfortunately scholars that goes to interview and because they don't want the job, they purposely just main-main at the interview. They kata, I'm not interested actually, but Khazanah asked me to come. Apa punya YK scholar ni? Because you're only thinking of yourself. Can you imagine these prospective employers? Huh? Bila dia punya thinking of YK. And when other YK scholars come for interview, they'll say, hopeless lah. And if you are dishonest in your exams, alhamdulillah tak ada lah. But you know, imagine if you are caught being dishonest. Sponsored by YK. So this is not about you. Remember, it's not about you. It's about people who will come after you. It's about your community. That's the people that we want to help. So I have very high hopes for all of you, as always. I'm very confident you will do well. I pray you will do well. And I do hope when my 2 grandchildren, and I'm sure many more to come, when they are your age, yeah, they will be in a country much better than where we are today because of people like you. Yeah? So go, fulfill your destiny to become leaders of this great country. With that, thank you very much for